The town of Berlin. Country charm at the center of Connecticut.
Okay, welcome everyone. We'll call this town council meeting of September 6, 2016 to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Kate, please.
Councilor Campanelli.
Here.
Councilor Evans.
Here.
Mayor Kaczynski.
Here.
Councilor Luddy.
Here.
Councilor Piassa.
Here.
Councilor Rochette.
Here.
Councilor Rosso.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Okay. First up is our audience of citizens. We had we have a sign-in sheet, but if you didn't sign it, don't worry about it. I'll pick the one person that signed it, and then we will, the rest of the people that wish to speak are certainly welcome. I wanted to just address one issue before we start with the audience of citizens that came up in our last meeting, and it has to do with what people are allowed to speak their minds here in this council meeting and in a town meeting in a public forum. Obviously, we operate under the rules, first and foremost, of the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States in this any town meeting we have in town. So there is a freedom of speech that is afforded everyone. And as long as their message is not offensive to anyone, it could be verbal or nonverbal. It could be a sign or it could be a speech. And it should be, we would hope that it's about the topics that are before us, but it could be really about whatever you want to say to us. Keep it brief. We have a lot of business to conduct, but we welcome all opinions and all viewpoints, and that's your right as a citizen in the town, in the state, and in the country. So as we go forward with that, just please keep that in mind. We do ask that you keep it respectful and as brief and to the point as possible.
And not disrupt.
Yeah, obviously not disruptive. That's what I mean by respectful, not disruptive. But if you wish to hold up a sign with a non-offensive message on it, that's sending a message to the council about how you want us to vote or what your opinion is, as long as it's not directed at anyone personally and it's not any type of bad statements against someone personally, that is perfectly protected. There's no council rule against it, and there's no rule in our country against it. So with that in mind, we will start the audience of citizens. We'll start with Dave Sear, who did sign our list, so we'll go with Dave.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Dave Sear, 245 Cole Lane, and I'm a member of the Economic Development Commission. I did ask Kate and Denise if I could speak on a couple agenda items, number 9 and 11, because I have a meeting after this, and they said that was okay as long as I signed up. Item 9, it's on page 3, and it's under new business. And it's an agenda item that talks about a 7-year tax abatement for Forest Machine. They're planning to move to Christian Lane. They're currently in Rocky Hill. And many months ago, when Chris Edge came to us, when the discussions started, we were competing with another local community in central Connecticut that has an enterprise zone. And I think all the council members are very familiar with the benefits of an enterprise zone. So we unanimously, the Economic Development Commission recommended that Chris go ahead and, if he needed to negotiate the 7-year tax abatement, that was fine with us. And so that is on the agenda this evening, item number 9. And I'm speaking specifically to that item, and that the Economic Development Commission voted unanimously supports that 7-year tax abatement.
Okay, great.
The other item on the agenda, right below that, is item 11. And item 11 is a grant for brownfields on 73 Woodlawn Street. And the state is given us a grant of $35,000 to do an environmental study. And if you can recall, that was the old deburring laboratories right next to Tasker Ford. And this particular grant is being, Tasca is also kicking in around $9,000 for it, and there's $0 coming out of Berlin's pocket. And quite often with some of these properties, when there's known contamination, it's difficult to get a developer or a business owner to buy into the property when it's unknown as to what you're going to have to spend to clean the property up. So the Economic Development Commission fully supports accepting this grant and the additional money from Tasca to do the environmental study with the hopes of redeveloping that property. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Dave. All right, we'll keep that in mind when we get to those motions. So that was our one sign-up sheet, but that does not preclude anyone else. Now we have our audience of citizens before we get to our agenda items. So welcome again, everybody. So if anyone wishes to speak, I'll start on this side of the room. Just in general, whatever you want to speak about. If anyone wants to stand up, raise your hand. If not, we will proceed with our meeting. Seeing no hands, we will close the audience of citizens at this point. Thank you. And we will move on to our consent agenda. So our consent agenda, we have 9 topics here. I assume we've all reviewed them. And do we have any issues with any?
Yes, Mayor. Can I make a motion to pull out topic number 5 for discussion?
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll just pull that out. We'll handle that at the top of our new business. We'll make it letter A or something. I guess not 1. Well, 1. We'll change all the numbers. Whatever. We'll figure it out. Yeah, there you go. A half. Yeah. Okay, the rest of the consent agenda. Any issues? Any questions? No, hearing none. Okay, so if I take a motion for that.
Sure. I'll make a motion to accept consent agenda items 1 through 4 and 6 through 9 as written.
Okay, thank you. Second.
I have a second on that.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, our consent agenda carries other than topic 5. Thank you. So we'll go with topic 5, or old topic 5, new topic A, I guess, for our new business that had to do with the library. What do you want to discuss this? Or this is accepting donations. Do we have some discussion on this? Yes. We can make a motion, put it on the floor, then we can discuss it. Want to make a motion?
No, just talk about it.
Okay.
Can we get
All right.
background on it?
Yeah.
Maybe from the town manager?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a motion to accept donations that have been given to the Berlin Peck Memorial Library. They are all listed out in terms of what the donations have been made to hopefully do. There are several items on here, support of the elevator fund, and then there are some different denominations from different individuals, as well as Kensington Nursery School for the purchase of books. It totals $54,910 in checks and cash,
Great.
and $1806.74 in books and DVDs.
That's great. So before we put the motion on the floor, you want to, yes?
Yeah, just had a question for the town manager and maybe from the director of the library is how this will help us, because I think this is highlighting some good efforts here of the community and the donors here. How close does this get us to what we need funding for the elevator directly? You don't have to have exact numbers either. I'm just looking for a rough magnitude here.
Right now, the elevator has received or will have received all of the funds necessary for the town's grant. With these donations, there is about a shortfall of roughly $10,000, and Joe Arasimowitz had contacted Helen Malinka about mid-August, as he felt that he was able to secure $10,000 in bond money. It's being voted on by the Bond Commission on September 30th. And then if the funds are approved at that time, we will get the check the next day or within the week or so. That would still leave enough time if the state were to somehow not approve it, to leave the month of October for Helen to come back to council if there is a shortfall of any amount, to seek funds either from the contingency account or something else. But she was rather pleased with her work. There were several patrons that came forward, some with rather large donations that have been recognized. One was had requested to remain anonymous, but Helen has worked for the last 9 months or so to get the remainder of the town's portion.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I appreciate that, Ms. McNair. Mayor, I just would comment, bonding $10,000 on the state level. We have taxes coming out of both pockets. I would think we should do a little homework and in our next meeting be able to find $10,000 and be able to fund that remaining without going out and bonding for it.
That's the state.
That money is part of a larger bond of about $150,000 that will be coming in different areas to the town. So that's 10,000 of the 150. It's not the only thing that's on the.
Understood, but then it would be 140,000 instead of 150,000 bonded.
Well, question. So you want to refuse $10,000? Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I'm saying. I said we're going to look at where we can get $10,000 of our own funds and not add additional taxes to us through the interest and principal that would be the interest that would be on top of those
So you
funds.
do want to refuse $10,000 from the state?
I think you don't realize that we do have taxes coming out of both pockets here, and we just have to find a point in which we're going to find those funds.
Okay.
I have a question. Have we done any analysis, I don't even know what this is on, have we done any analysis to determine how much it'll cost people if it comes from the state and how much it'll cost them if it comes from the town? Because either way, it's going to cost them. And I think we should go with whatever costs them less. So is there some way we can do that?
That's what I'm asking Ms. Campanelli, is to
Okay.
have staff look to see what funds are there.
Great.
To my
Existing
knowledge,
budget.
the only place that would have that amount of money would be the contingency fund, and it's September, and I'm a little remiss to assign
Early.
funds from the contingency fund. I know that seems like a small amount, $10,000, but this is a rather tight budget. I'm just concerned. I would hope that the bond commission, according to Representative Ara Simwitz, he seemed relatively certain that it would be voted in favor on September 30th. So I don't have any other information.
And if I could just make a comment, it seems to me, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul is not a sound fiscal policy, and I just feel that if we start taking money that was already budgeted, and as chair of the budget committee, I think you did put a pretty fine comb to that budget to make sure everything that was in there was allocated appropriately. And if we start, doing this, then we don't get an elevator that Helen has been fundraising for an extraordinary amount of time, because we don't want to include $10,000 in a bond of a larger $150,000 bond. It just seems very short-sighted to me.
Well, I'll help you understand from the budget chairman perspective. There was additional funds that did come back that increased our fund level. So the funds are there. We just have to look at how we would allocate them. So it just raised the level of our fund balance that was, the funds. And we also had funds come back from our bonding for long-term debt. So I asked that the staff would take a look at that and see if that is the only place contingency, and then what the impact on that, and if it is a detriment to that contingency fund, which I don't think it will be if we look at the percentage associated with that contingency fund.
So can I ask town manager, that money that came back from the bonding, that went back to general fund, right? So that wasn't allocated specifically to different departments.
The premium that was just received usually is used to retire the debt.
Right. So that we don't actually have that money in departments for, supplies, office supplies, whatever.
No,
is
that wouldn't
so
be part
there's
of the
no
budget.
increase in their budget in terms of, paying for salaries, fringe benefits, supplies. So that money went back to pay the debt. So that's not really money we can tap into. Again, it's borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. If this is the way we want to go, again, I will be voting against it because I think it's short-sighted.
There was an overall amount that came back to the general fund that was in excess of what we expected. And that's what I'm referring to. However that equation comes out, it was in hundreds of thousands, I think it was $160,000.
Yeah, that wasn't allocated anything. That was something we were
So
looking at
let's
for
look
next
at
year.
that. That's what I'm asking.
I think maybe what we do going forward is, the bonding's headed forward with the state. That's fine. We have a month. It's the beginning of September. We just take a little time to maybe explore that a little bit. If there's money in our budget.
When is that bond going forward?
I was told September 30th is the bond commission's meeting to vote on that at the state. These donations still have to be accepted.
Oh,
these have nothing to do with that
no,
$10,000.
right.
So
Yes. Yeah, no, we know that. We know that. Yeah. No, that was just a topic of discussion and the whole topic. Yeah, no, that's all good. But and I think I think the feeling just may be, and I'm just after hearing everyone speak up here, maybe the feeling is just that hey, Berlin takes care of Berlin. If we have some extra money, that we do have, not that we have a lot of extra money to throw around, but 10,000 is not a unusually large amount, and we do want to take care of the library. Helen has done an outstanding job raising this money, and I think we always, I think the offer was always out there. If you couldn't get the rest of the elevator money, we would come forward with it from the town. So I think that's just probably what you're hearing from some of us. But so the bond thing is rolling. That's all well and good. So I don't think there's no harm, no foul in the next couple of weeks to look through our budget a little bit closer and see if there's anything. We still have another meeting before that, and just let the state bond thing is rolling no matter what we do. So, and if the state bond doesn't go through, then we'll, and if we don't fund it before then, we'll fund it after. Does that make sense to everyone? Yes, no?
Yes, no.
No.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Last year when we
Well,
had
that's good.
excuse me, Mayor, we
Yes.
had a little bit of a surplus. We had a chance to pay for some things out of that surplus, and we decided that we were going to lease equipment for 5 years. I'm specifically talking about a lawnmower that we could have just paid for $28,000 and change. We decided to lease it for 5 years and waste $4,000 in interest. We have the same kind of thing here. Why would we bond for $10,000? I think we'd all feel much better.
We're not bonding.
Well, the state will and give us the money that way, and they're going to borrow money to hand back to us. If we have the money and it's in an account somewhere and it's not allocated for something, why don't we put it to the library when this is a
We've
needed
been-
project?
We've been told over and over again how Berlin has no money. That's why the budget has to be cut to the levels it's been cut at. And now we've been told we have $100,000 extra. If I was the taxpayers, I'd be a little concerned with that.
if I could just,
Yeah, I don't think
we have yet to find out exactly. We are ending one fiscal year and beginning another fiscal year, so there may be some confusion. We may have ended last fiscal year with monies in excess of what we spent. That's a good thing. But it's only because of things such as the mild winter, and I was going to talk about that a little bit in my manager's report, but that money is not certain yet, but that's also last year's money that rolls into the general fund. I think what you're talking about now is the budget that exists for this year, and I am unaware of any place other than the contingency that money could come from.
Okay.
Because there
Yeah,
isn't
that's-
extra
we won't
money
know
in
if
people.
there's a surplus until July of next year.
If you're talking about
Right.
last year's surplus, there may
Right.
in fact be a surplus based on
the winter.
expenses running less than what we
Right.
needed last year. So, but that's two separate budgets,
Right.
if there's any confusion.
Gotcha.
Okay. Okay, so we do have this, let's move this motion, and we can, again, I still think, see if we can fund it. If we can, we can. If we can't, the bond money is forthcoming, hopefully, but who knows? So we have topic, I guess we call it topic A under new business. That's our,
It just
can make-
continues at
just-
number 5.
huh?
It
Just make it
continues
5?
at
Okay, so
5.
number 5, we just make a motion on number 5? Not to hold up the rest of it, Helen, we're not trying to do that, of course. No, don't worry, no, it had nothing to do with that.
Move to accept monetary donations totaling $54,910 for the Berlin Peck Memorial Library and deposit $85 to the library agency fund account. Deposit $54,825 to the elevator fund account, from which related purchases will be made. Also to move to accept donations of books and DVDs with an estimated value of $1,783.76 and add them to the adult department collection. Move to accept donations of books with an estimated value of, I think that's $22.98, and add them to the children's department collection.
Okay, great. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. So one way or the other, Helen, get you $10,000. Promise you that. All right.
You got it.
One way or the other.
It's on the record.
Yeah. Okay, new business. Topic number 1. Denise.
Hold on.
Oh.
I want to make a motion.
Oh,
We
let's
had a
hear it.
request to move
Oh, yeah.
number 15, right,
So number
to number 4.
4, correct. Yes. Second on that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks. Okay, number 1.
The Charter Revision Commission met on Monday, August 1st, and approved their final draft. It's been distributed to the town council, and they approved the draft at their special town council meeting on August 11th, 2016. They will now be published in their entirety on September 8th in the Berlin Citizen. The town council shall, by a majority vote, now determine the questions for the special election or general election, as well as the date of the election. There was some general discussion concerning the question at the August 11th meeting. The town clerk has suggested 6 questions to be submitted at the election to be held on Tuesday, November 8th. These need to be adopted by the council.
Okay, so we have to pick our questions to put on the ballot in November. I'll just start out with maybe just some discussion. I know we went back and forth at that meeting about how many questions. We don't want to overwhelm the electorate with a lot of questions. One suggestion I might have before we make our motion, or we could discuss it in that too, is maybe we go down to 5 questions. I don't know. It's just something I'll throw out there.
I think fewer is better.
Yeah, right. I know we had that discussion. We tried to get down to as few questions as possible, yet still cover the most important points. So my suggestion would be to the residency requirement for the town manager. We just roll that question into the general provision question. That would, to me, make the most sense, in my opinion. It doesn't. It's not as major an issue. It's an issue, but it's not one of the main topics of change. Yes.
Question 1 is a compound question. We're
Okay.
adding shall the proposal to establish a board of finance and authorize up to 2 budget referenda be adopted. So I was thinking maybe we should split that, because somebody may want half but not the other half, and to ask it that way is sort of asking 2 questions with 1. So
you want those separated out?
yeah, or
So
take
we.
out.
Questions.
I mean,
Two
yeah, it's
questions,
really 2
separate.
questions.
Separate
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah.
It's not the same and not related. I don't think a finance department is related to 2 budget referendums. Are we in
Mayor.
discussion phase without a motion, or are we going to have a motion?
No, we'll
Sorry,
have a
my
motion. I'm
bad.
just doing some initial discussion to kind of see where we're headed and think about it, but yeah, we can do. So if we did that, if we didn't combine the other ones, we'd be up to 7, I guess, unless we combine.
Yeah, I'm
Something,
good.
right?
I'm good
Yeah.
with the combination that you
Yeah.
suggested.
Of that one?
That's
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, let's make a motion on this, and we'll
discussion.
have some more discussion and figure out what the best way to go.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we move that the following questions be submitted to the electors. We'll have some
Okay,
discussion, right?
Yeah, second?
Second.
All right, so now we'll have some discussion. So that would, if we, and,
Maybe we'd have the chair, Mayor, of
yeah, that's what I was.
discuss some of
Paul's
that.
here.
Oh, he is, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to, Paul, come on up. I just wanted to get the reason for that, just if there was a reason, if there is a reason why it would be together, before we start chopping things up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, you have to bear with me tonight. I'm fighting a late summer cold, so. The commission as well as I believe the town clerk, we went over this, and it's going to be very difficult to separate those two questions. The structure of the budget and the adoption process, the procedure, is so intertwined with the Board of Finance, the proposed Board of Finance, that we don't feel that making two questions really would make any sense. If one passed but not the other, you'd be left with some very confusing language, and I don't know if that could ever be reconciled. So we just felt that since those two questions were so interchangeable and together, we just felt that we should leave that as one question. It was brought up at the last meeting by Councilor Paranessa about separating the bonding, and we were able to do that. The town clerk was able to do that.
Can I ask a question then
Yeah.
about question number 1? If the 2 budget referenda are reliant on a Board of Finance passing, can't you just take out the 2 budget referenda? Because if it's part of the clause of the Board of Finance, why do you have to include that in the question?
Well, you don't have to include that in the question, but we thought that that was one of the major purposes of the Charter Revision Commission. There were many residents who requested that there be more than one budget referenda, and we felt that that was important to have directly in the question. The budget process does have other significant changes, such as the separation of the Board of Education and the town budgets, and the requirement of the advisory question. So we didn't list everything, but we just felt that the 2 budget referenda was a very important part to have in a question. And again, we didn't feel that the it could be separated. I'm open to suggestions. If the Corporation Council feels that those 2 items can be separated, I'm all for it. But we just didn't feel that if one passed and the other passed, it would be almost impossible to reconcile.
Okay. Go ahead.
I
Yeah,
do
go
think
ahead.
that is, if it is left as the same, I know you say they're intertwined, but I'm sure there are people out there that want 2 budget referenda, but may not want the Board of Finance. So I think that's a really difficult question to ask people. I know this is going to pass, and I know it's going to go through however you guys want it to go through. But I do think that a voice needs to say that this is a little misleading for the public to think that if they want a Board of Finance, they will have 2 budget referenda, or if they want 2 budget referenda, they will have to have a Board of Finance. Because I don't think that is the case. I think you might have to go back and adjust some things, but I think you can structure the budget referendum without having the Board of Finance. I don't know, Corporation Council, I don't know if you've looked at it in enough detail to be able to weigh in on that.
Well, the problem is that we have a process with timelines that need to be followed, and the final report that was submitted by the Charter Revision Commission to the council and the subsequent conference that took place in July, at the end of July, between the council and the the commission, led to generating these questions, and the questions need to be submitted to the Secretary of State's office by the town clerk. I think it's September 23rd.
Well, yeah, they have to be
Is the
approved.
deadline.
They have to be approved by the town council
Right.
by September 8th.
Right. So I agree with the chairman that if you separate these questions and open up the possibility for inconsistent outcomes, the language of the approved final report of the commission is going to put us in a position that it's going to be very difficult to reconcile an approval of one and a rejection of the other.
Thank you.
So I just have another procedural question, and maybe this might be more for Kate or Denise, but are we going to get so when people go in there to vote, are they going to get an explanation under each one of these questions, or they're just getting the questions and that's it?
I was not at your meeting of August 11th, and I apologize for that. But my understanding was that you wanted me to do an explanatory text on question right now number 6,
Okay.
the overview, the overall one. We do start issuing military ballots on September 15th. So again, we're getting in a little bit close. And it could even be earlier depending upon when the list is available. I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Okay, no, I didn't know if that was a possibility, that we
Well,
might be able to maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I thought there
Now,
was going to be, there's going to be, though, information.
What will happen as far as,
available,
first
right?
of all,
Yeah.
on in the Berlin Citizen on this Thursday, we'll have a complete, the complete charter. It will have both what's being deleted and what's being put in. So it's going to be an insert. It's also been available on the website, and it's been available also as a hard copy in my office. When anybody gets an absentee ballot, they will get what is the attachment to this the summary item, which is the explanatory text. Okay? It will list right now the 5 questions. I wasn't sure how we were going to do everything, but then it would go into all the different explanatory text on question 6. When they go in to vote, this will be available for them also there. They have to have some of the poll in place.
Okay.
It will be a little lengthy reading for them. Hopefully they'll do some homework ahead of time, but
I know we haven't moved on this explanatory language yet, but and I've said it every time I've been at one of these meetings about this charter revision, about the lack of accountability and transparency with everything being a simple majority, and nowhere in this explanatory language does that have that change. And I think that is a really important change, because I think the public needs to be made aware that their voice will no longer matter for Board of Finance and for Town Council and for Board of Ed, really, because what this charter revision does is allow the Democratic Town Committee and the Republican Town Committee to appoint whoever they want on the council and on the Board of Finance, and they can just continue to appoint those people forever, because there's no term limits for council or for Board of Finance. There's term limits placed for P and Z for some reason. I'm not sure why, but not council or Board of Finance. So if we think on both sides of, the most vitriolic people, those committees can just keep appointing those people, and all they need is one vote. And I think people need to be aware of that. Their vote no longer matters. Their vote will matter for mayor, but not for town council or Board of Finance. And it's really important for me that people understand that. It is we are institutionalizing lack of accountability and lack of transparency for this town. And I think it's really unfortunate that we're moving forward with this, especially for people who ran on accountability, listening to the people, and transparency.
Okay. I would disagree with that, but, we've had that discussion many times, and I think we're already past that discussion. The voters will decide, and,
And
we
yet
will
you can't
get them
defend
all.
it.
We will get
How-
them
how-
all the
How are
information that
people's
we.
votes going to matter? I'd like to hear, Mayor, how you think their votes will make a difference.
We've already had this discussion. There's really no reason to go into it at this point. We're
Okay,
going to get
that's
the
what I thought.
voters all the information that they need to make the decision, and they will make the decision. We're not making the decision, they are.
But it's unfortunate that you
Correct.
put this forward to the voters.
Well, it's
A flawed
unfortunate,
document.
it's an unfortunate in your opinion, I understand that, but there are differences of opinion on this, and we've had this discussed at length, and remember too that this did not, although we approved it, this did not come from the council. This came from a charter review commission that we appointed. People from different parties, independents, different parties on both sides came up with these suggestions.
But I think
We sent them through because we thought they were, I thought personally, as far as my vote went, everyone has their own opinion, of course. With my vote, I thought there were some reasonable things that we're sending forward. And again, it's up to the people to decide, not for me, not for you. We've heard your opinion. We've heard my opinion. We've heard every member on the council's opinion. We've heard the Charter Review Commission's opinions. We're sending them forward to the voters. We're going to give them all the information that we can possibly get out there.
I hope
think
all
that's
the
very
information
important.
is given, and not just
Yes, I agree
not
with
just
you.
your opinion.
Well, and not just your opinion either.
I agree.
There are
I
two
agree.
sides to this.
But I
So
think what I
all
say
the
is fact
information-
based on what is included in the charter revision, that there
and you're-
is no vote.
Again, Rachel, in your opinion,
It's not
but we're
opinion,
gonna
it's based
get-
on the wording in the
we're
charter.
going to get the information out to the voters. They're going to make their decision, and it is their decision to make based upon what we sent forward. If they don't like them, they don't like them. I mean, that's up to the people of the town. We
Okay,
sent
so-
forward what we thought was the best product we could, and again, the people are deciding.
I think
That's what we're doing. That's what we ran on. The people will make decisions in this town, not the council. The people are going to make the decisions. We sent forward the best product that we thought we could.
Can we start by fixing this number one compound question?
That's what we're here to do, yes.
Excellent.
That's what we're here to do. But now, in light of what the town council said, I don't know, or corporation council said, where do we
There's got to be a way to fix this so that
sit with this,
it
Jeff?
isn't two questions rolled
Well,
into
again,
one.
I'm not trying to be an impediment to what
Yeah,
you're
no, I
trying to
get it.
do, but we have a statutory process.
Right.
And the time to have addressed the issue was when the council and the Charter Revision Commission.
And I'm curious,
Confirm.
when we had
Wait,
our
wait, wait, wait.
sample questions.
I'm confused.
Wait. The questions that we had, we had some of these questions in our
For
last
the
meeting.
August 11th meeting.
The
yeah.
same
Yeah.
questions, correct?
No,
no.
this one's
Were they different?
Similar.
Is it
This one's different.
Well, that's why I don't have that in front of me, so.
I believe that on August 11th, the question number 1 and number 2 were combined.
Yes.
They were all together. And then, based upon my understanding, that there was some thought to separate out the automatic referendum for bond ordinances over 5 million. Is why I separated it out.
Okay,
into a
so
separate
so 1
question.
and 2 were one question in our August meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Triple compound.
It was a
Yeah,
triple
which is
compound,
it
okay.
was it was confusing then too. So,
Okay.
but so hold on, time out. I have a question that may fix this entire problem. Is there any way that we're going to get all of this on one side of the ballot? If we had one question, would it all?
I
fit
don't
on
know
one
that
side?
yet.
Okay.
And
Alright.
I will, the thing with the, I believe that we will. I've talked to the printer. The determination of that is based upon several things. And it is, I have to get the list from the Secretary of State's office because you have to think about the number of candidates that may be on the ballot, such as you're going to have Democrat, Republican, working families, Libertarian, as we go down the list. And then the way the ballot is set up here in Berlin, where we have that, it's usually down at the bottom is the Board of Education. I have asked and received many different types of ballots from my fellow town clerks. Most of the questions would go across. There's a possibility they can also go along the side if we don't use up all the blocks with the different candidates, for the different positions, such as presidential electors and, the Senate and all the way down. So there's different formats that may be used.
Okay.
But until I get the listing from the state, which won't come until, we're being told right now, maybe September 13th,
Okay.
around that time. Once I get that listing from the Secretary of State, then I can submit it to my printer, and at that point, we can start working on the ballot.
Okay.
I believe right now that I can get these questions across the top.
Okay.
They're simple, they're not lengthy.
Right. Okay.
know,
So you think even with the
There's
six, we might
reasons
be
why
able to get it
short
on
and
one
sweet are
page?
sometimes nice.
Yeah. Okay. So even with the 6, we might be able to get it on one page.
I think right now, based upon my conversation with the printer, as of even today, yes.
Okay.
But I don't know until I get that list. And then the other thing is that my printer has to look at it.
Okay. All right. I was thinking, maybe if we had one question, might be able to get it on the front of the ballot. But all right. So
You can always
that does
go
not
with one
resolve
question.
my issue with question 1. I thought it would.
Okay. You can always do one question.
Yeah.
That's been done. But there was thought that we might want to split it out a bit.
All right.
Mayor?
Yes.
I just went back to the August agenda, and that's exactly right. There was basically there's 2 ands in the sentence, and then That's all it was done. It was taken the $5 million bonding ordinance, over $5 million, and making that a separate question.
Okay, so we did separate out those two issues, except we still left the two at the top there. So I guess we're up against the time frame and against what we have done so far, which has been a very exhausting process, and a lot of time and effort has been put into it. So it doesn't appear from what our corporate counsel is telling us that that is would be the right road to go down.
Could we take out the and authorize up to 2 budget referenda and put that in an explanatory document that we would attach to the question?
Additional explanatory text, you mean?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
We just
Okay.
mentioned that, yeah.
Okay.
I can do something general on the first 5 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you want to combine right now the residency maybe, but on the
Yeah.
first 4,
Mhm.
and do something very similar to what has been done with the explanatory for number 6, and take that language that refers in general, maybe not all of it, but the overall view of it. And I'm sure if Mr. Arcasy has a voice left, he might help me, but we can try to do something in general, not as detailed as this is.
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 sentences.
Yeah.
I think it's misleading to the public to have this as a compound sentence, because they are not, you can have one without the other. I mean, I really think this is an attempt to make sure something passes in this thing. And I think if we can put it in explanatory, then we should. Because there are people who may want the 2 budget referenda, but not want the finance, so they're going to vote yes on that because they want the 2 budget referenda, or
no.
take that out. It doesn't have to be there if it is dependent on Board of Finance, and put it in the explanatory information.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, one
Yeah.
possible suggestion might be change that sentence around to read something like, shall the proposal to establish a budgetary process to include a Board of Finance and up to 2 budget referenda be adopted? It makes it a little clearer. It's less of a compound sentence. The commission really feels strongly about the 2 votes on the budget. That was one of the driving forces for the commission.
And I don't disagree with you. I think that that's fine, but I don't think one is dependent on the other, and I think people could have differing opinions of the 2. So to include them in the same question, nothing else is a compound question there.
We have 5 lawyers up here.
And when we talked about the mayor and the whole budget process is going to change, based on the council, charter piece. If there's no if Board of Finance doesn't pass, but the council piece does, it's all intertwined. So why does there have to be 2 things in that one question?
Well, the council, if I may, the council thing is we felt comfortable separating that because you're creating a new office, the office of the separately elected mayor, and that can exist on its own. The problem with the 2 items in number 1, the Board of Finance and the budget referenda, is, for instance, if the budget referenda passes and the Board of Finance doesn't, the way the language is, it requires the budget to come back to the Board of Finance to adopt a new budget, not only once but twice. So if you don't have the Board of Finance in
So
there,
couldn't it just come back to the
whole
budget
thing-
commission like it does now? I mean, can't you just change that language in there if the 2 referenda pass, then it goes back to the council's budget commission? I mean, I don't think it's that dependent on a Board of Finance, and I could be completely off base here. I just feel like they're not dependent upon each other.
What say you, Mr.
This is
Corporate Counsel?
this is the core problem. If you read the proposed Chapter 7, the budgetary process, the Board of Finance and the annual budget referendum, the process is intertwined. And I understand what you're saying about changing the language, but that's what I was referring before. The process is driven by state statute, as we discussed previously. What you approve as the final report and what has gone into publication imminent publication is this language.
Okay, all right,
So
well, that
if
answers
we're
my
gonna,
question.
if we're gonna separate the questions without changing the language of section 7, it's gonna be chaotic if one passes and the other doesn't.
So in order to get to budget referendum, Board of Finance has to pass. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know how it makes sense if you have a two budget referenda passes and the Board of Finance doesn't.
In the language that we approved previously.
Right.
Okay, all right, well then that answers that question. So if Board of Finance does not pass, the budget process stays the same as it is now. There is no going back for future referenda after that.
That's right.
That's what the
Yes.
question says,
That's
right?
correct, yes.
That's what it says.
Okay.
That's what
All
the
right.
question says.
I think that's unfortunate.
It's one
Okay.
process, right.
Yeah. I mean, I might agree to separate them out, but, yeah, I mean, if we can't, at this juncture, we can't, I think.
I do understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
Councilor Mashat, because it would be nice to have it, but it is so intertwined
Okay.
with the whole process.
Yeah,
You gotta have, yeah,
thank you.
all right. But I can do a little bit of explanatory text on all the questions, all right, and then I'll send it out to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I might have misunderstood myself. I thought there was gonna be explanatory text on everything, correct? Or not?
That's not what I was
We didn't
told.
do that. That's.
My
what I
understanding
thought
was
we
that you were
did.
looking for it mainly on question
Well, 6,
6.
because we has the general provisions.
Yeah.
I understand that. There was a lot of specifics in there, but I thought there was gonna be some more explanation on some of this.
I'm happy to do something.
Okay, good. Yeah, yeah,
So-
that's what I.
So
That's
if
my
we do that, can we
understanding.
take the compound nature out of the question and?
Well, maybe we could rewrite it like, so there's no,
Okay.
perhaps like Mr. Argis, he said if we could rewrite that
Well, if we rewrite
question
it
a little bit.
That way, I don't think we need the explanation.
Yeah, okay.
To establish the
Yeah.
budgetary process.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, well.
I'm
forget.
sorry to be a pain, but the Board of Finance is so much more than just that budgetary process, right? Paul, and I just want to make sure that the Board of Finance, their responsibility is much more than just that budget process.
That's correct. Their
So
responsibility is all finances.
I
yes.
don't think that we should reword it that way because I think that's misleading to I just want to make sure it is as clear and concise for the public as possible. That's all I'm trying to get to. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just feel like that isn't encompassing enough of what the board, because the Board of Finance will become the most powerful board in this town. They are going to basically control everything that happens, and I think people need to know that. And
I don't think it's actually written that way, but again, another difference of opinion, which really,
Sure. Yep.
again, we can debate it all night and never
Yep.
get to the conclusion, I'm sure.
Yep.
So, what we're trying to do is fix this question, and we're concerned initially with the compound question, and now there's a suggestion to, obviously, we can't change it, we tried to do that, and now we wanted to rewrite the question, or we don't, or we do. Dave, do you have any suggestions?
I just want to make a comment that I appreciate Mr. Payness's, in our last meeting on this, seeing the length of that question and the multiplicity of it and separating that one out, so that was helpful. And I think the indication that there will be some text put out in papers will help. I'm sure seems to be a lot of interested parties out there to explain what this is going to do to our change to our charter, and I think that it's helpful to see that they are related together, and they have some impact on each other. Mayor, I do think too that you're taking question number 5 and making it part of 6, and if that's going to be explanatory text, can help reduce the number of questions.
Right. Right. I think before we finish on 1, are we agreed? Maybe we'll have 5. We'll make the motion. We'll amend the motion, but 5 into 6. Does that make sense to everyone? To make
Sure.
5
Yep,
questions.
that's
Okay.
fine.
Just so we got. I'm happy we got that done. We'll vote on it, but so number 1. So really, we're kind of at the point of we leave it or we rewrite it a little bit so it's not compound. And with the hope, and I know we will get, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of information out there, hopefully about these issues, but I want to make sure that we put it out, obviously, so we explain the question so there's no confusion amongst any voter in town as to what this all means. The facts, they will get the facts and then will make their own judgment call, obviously. So what was, I think Mr. Argosy or Kate or someone, you had a different way to rewrite this first question that we may be happier with or clearer with, or Paul, what did you say?
Well, the primary responsibility of the Board of Finance is the budget. Certainly there are things that are going to be off budget that the Board of Finance is going to have to approve, bonding, etc. If you think that budgetary process is too narrow, then make it something like, shall the proposal to establish a budgetary and financing process to include a Board of Finance and up to 2 budget referendum be adopted, something like that. I mean, the Board of Finance is strictly limited to finances. They're not the they're not the main body in town. They're not the policy board. They're not the legislative body. They're strictly limited to budgets and finances. So if there's a way to do that and make the sentence read better.
Would that make it clearer, do we think? What say you all?
Adding more words has never made it
Okay,
clearer.
so-
But I mean,
I get it.
yeah, budgetary process.
Yeah.
Everything the council and the town spends is budgeting.
Right.
Whether it's in the budget or outside of the budget, you're still budgeting.
Right.
Even a bond is budgeting.
Okay. So, I mean, you had the. I'll go back to you, Kristen. You had the issue with the compound question, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but we could rewrite it. It would be a little bit wordier question.
Yeah, I mean, I was
never let a
thinking-
bunch of lawyers debate this stuff, Kristen.
I know.
We should all know this by now. But that's
I know.
Notice who's talking.
yeah. It's too late. I understand. Yes. Always bad. But so do we want a wordier question that is maybe a little bit, maybe explains a little bit better, or do we want the compound question? I'll leave it up. What do you think?
I'd say leave it and put in explanatory text.
Yeah.
At this
All
point, I
right,
think
that's
that's
fine.
the.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I don't want to make it longer.
Okay. No, I know. We're trying
We'll
to
just-
keep these as short as
Yeah.
possible, and
As long as we're getting explanatory text on these
Okay.
things, I think that's fine. So
we may have come to a consensus at least on that question. That's very impressive. Very impressive. Okay, good. So, all right. So that's going to stay the same, but with the direction. I mean, we'll amend this motion a little bit, I guess.
You have a motion
on the floor.
Also to authorize me to prepare.
That's the second motion, the second one, right? So we'll include that now. So the first motion on the floor, did we include combining 5 into 6 or no?
No.
It was only for the following questions to be submitted, so
Okay.
you didn't, yeah.
So can we amend?
Oh, of course, I mean,
Yeah.
so is question 1 going to stay as it is?
Yes,
Question 2, no one has a problem with?
correct.
Question 3 is okay?
Yes,
And question 4 is okay?
yes.
So the only thing would be to make a motion to approve the first 4 questions, combined 5 into 6, and approve the general revisions.
Make that number
question.
5.
Yeah.
That's number 5.
So I will make a motion to amend my first motion to accept questions 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I move to remove item number 5 and make number 6 the new number 5. Is that okay?
That's fine, as long as I know what you want.
Second.
Okay. Without any further discussion on the questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
nay.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Second motion.
Okay, move to authorize the preparation and printing of concise explanatory text by the town clerk approved by the Corporation Council.
Okay, second on that?
Second.
All right, and discussion on this? So I know we're going to try and add some more explanatory text for
All the questions.
all of them.
I will put in something on each question.
Right.
I'll add additional language into number 6 that refers to the previous question 5.
Right.
And then I will send it out to you all. I have to work with Jeff on it. He has to approve it too. I don't have a lot of time though, so that's where it's gonna have to be kind of quick, short and
Okay.
sweet.
Yes. Yeah,
Can
I
I-
think that's what we're looking for.
Do you have any
Can we
questions?
put requests in? I would like to see for the Board of Finance that it's a 3-3, for the Town Council that it's 3-3, because the mayor makes the majority. So Town Council 3-3, Board of Finance 3-3, and Board of Ed, simple majority. And that it is 4 run one election, 5 run the other election.
Ms. Rochette, the Board of Education is not simple majority anymore.
Okay,
We
okay.
had amended that.
Thank you,
This is
okay.
amended.
So under question number 4, I will put down that will create a town council that is 3-3.
Yep.
When the mayor is separately elected. Is
Yep.
that okay?
Yes, that would be
All right.
fine, thank you.
And then under the establishment of the Board of Finance, that it will be a 6-member board.
Right,
Okay.
3-3.
Yes, okay. Great. I can do that.
All right, so anything else on these? All right, so we have the motion on the floor for the explanatory text. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so moved. That's curious to me that you voted for the explanatory text, but you don't want the questions going to the electors?
I can't vote for questions
understand.
for a document that I think is a
Okay.
flawed document. So we can keep discussing it, and I'll keep
Okay.
giving you my opinion.
No,
but
it's interesting.
Okay, it is
You don't want the
interesting.
voters to have a
That's
decision.
not the case. That's not the case. I want the voters to have
Can I
decisions
just-
on a document
Okay.
that does not take their voice away. And this document takes their voice away.
Again, in
Can
your
I
opinion.
just
Thank you.
procedurally, we already took the vote and it's already
Yes.
going to the voters.
Yes, I know, that's
So,
right.
yeah, so
Right.
now
Your
we're on
comment was-
the next vote, and
I-
since we know it's already going to the voters, we're voting for the
I actually thought
explanatory
we took
text.
that vote last week, that the last meeting was going to the voters. That was the vote we took at our August 11th meeting, that we sent it to the voters. Tonight was just to decide on what questions went to the voters, correct?
I
Right?
can't
Am
vote
I
for
correct on
questions
that?
for a
Okay.
document that I don't believe in, and I'm
No, I
sorry
get it.
that you think
Well-
it's interesting, but
Well, you
that
weren't
is-
here at the last meeting,
You're
but
right,
I'm
because
saying
it was
you weren't here.
a short notice, and I was on vacation.
Okay,
And my
no, that's
priority
fine.
is to my family, so
I
we can
understand
talk
that.
about the reason we didn't have it the week before was
I
because
understand
you were
that.
on vacation, right?
I understand that. Yes. Yes.
And we actually had it without a number of staff here because they were on vacation.
We did have some timelines we were trying to meet
Exactly. But it didn't interfere with your
to
vacation.
get to November.
We can keep going back and forth. It's
Yes,
okay with me.
you
I
can.
don't mind.
What's
Fine.
next, Mayor?
Yes, I guess we should move on at this point. All right, item number 2.
At its July 11th meeting, the members that were present at the Berlin Park and Recreation Commission meeting recommended approval for the replacement of an existing batting cage, which is not a permanent structure, at Pettit Complex with a new permanent 50-foot by 80-foot building, which would be used for batting, pitching, and fielding practice. This would be indoor, so they could use it regardless of conditions outside. The Little League has indicated that they will pay the total cost, which they estimate to be approximately $75,000. The Little League has indicated that the reason they would like to do this is because then they don't have to have students going out of town or paying AAU teams to practice at other facilities. Also, it would be available for use by the other baseball teams in town and softball. We have Attorney Leary is here to discuss it. They are requesting a motion to refer this to Planning and Zoning for an 824 review. And I'm not sure if there are any questions regarding the structure. I know we don't have a site plan, plot plan. I guess we just have the Google Earth.
Correct. Just for the record, John Leary here. My address is 151 Still Meadow Lane here in Berlin. I
Welcome.
serve on the board of directors for Berlin Little League. I've been involved with Little League for about the past 10 years in different capacities. And as the town manager explained, this is an indoor facility which will only enhance the program for Berlin Little League and softball. So, and we're ready to underwrite the expense be no expense to the town in connection with the construction. There'll be some expense with utilities throughout the year, which will be, probably some marginal expense over what's already involved with the Pettit complex.
Okay.
Question for you.
Questions, yeah.
Is this going to be built in the place where the batting cage is now, in that same piece of, right?
The exact
Piece of there?
location where the
Okay.
batting cage is at the Pettit complex.
Yes.
It's going to be a little bit bigger than what you see there,
Mhm.
and that existing batting cage is going to be moved to the Garrity fields,
Okay.
which are in bad shape.
Okay, any other questions?
Mayor, just
Yeah.
a question. The insuring of the building itself, whose responsibility is that? Is that the town or is that the Little League to cover the insurance on that?
It's my understanding that the town covers it right now, so I would continue to be the case.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Question, who will actually own the structure when it's complete?
It's the town of Berlin structure, operated by the park department.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
as one who's just had 2 grandchildren go through the system, this is direly needed. It's almost at an unsafe level at this point, and I would urge the councilman to approve it.
Okay. No more questions for Mr. Leary? We have make a motion?
Sure. I will
Thank you,
move
John.
to refer the proposed building at the Pettit Complex and batting cage move to Garrity Field to the Planning and Zoning Commission for 8-24 review.
Second on that?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, John. Good luck. Number 3.
At the August 11th meeting, the Parks and Recreation Commission recommended the acceptance of donation and installation of a memorial monument for Nick Zuck, a young man who passed away this summer. He was on the Berlin High School football team. A memorial monument would be next to the 2 existing monuments that are already there for Coach Pellegrinelli and his father. There is a rendition of where it would be. We have 2 gentlemen here from the football team who are available for any questions. There is a sketch of the proposed football helmet that they wish to have mounted, and they would like to have this, and I think it might be ready for the first game, with home game.
Ready for the first home game?
Yeah, it'll be ready September 16th.
That's great.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Motion.
I will move to approve the donation of a memorial to deceased team member Nick Zook by the BHS football team and to be installed at Schoolies Field at no cost to the town.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mayor, I just have a
Aye.
question
yes.
before.
Question,
just
yes.
on discussion.
Yes.
The bronze helmet,
Mm-hmm.
is it a helmet that has been bronzed or is it a bronze sculpture?
It's a full cast bronze sculpture.
Excellent, thank you. That has great durability and I fully support that.
Nice.
Can I just ask a question about any concerns about security with that?
Yeah.
You know,
It's in the inside Sage Park. It's locked.
You got
Okay.
and you got a camera on that too, right? There's a camera on that?
There's no cameras in the stadium.
There's no camera there? Huh? I thought there was a camera
They're
on the,
motion detector.
I'm gonna
Oh,
need
they're
you
motion.
guys, somebody to come up and be on mic.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
come on
sorry,
up for a minute.
sorry.
Over here?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just give your name for the,
Yeah, you know what?
thanks.
You know, and the only reason I bring it up is because I know with Lucille McCacci's memorial, there was some concerns around the bronze just being
Yeah.
worth money. I just want to make sure you guys are comfortable with the security of that.
So they're just so there's just motions on, so if there's motion there, is it going to the PD or?
I'm not.
We should check on that.
Well, John Paul Demko, Berlin, 138 Wildermere Road. I am not familiar with the
Okay.
overall security.
Right.
I think it is a motion detector that's alarmed to the police.
Yeah, I think so too, and I could have swore there was a camera, but we can explore that further. No camera. Only because I know the security company that did. I could have swore told me there was a camera
Our
there. But anyway,
facilities is
we'll check.
saying no.
No, nothing. No camera there. Oh, okay.
Don't.
Okay. So it's the motion then.
We should think about it.
Well, I'm wondering. I mean, I'm assuming that will be secured. As
It-
best we can.
Yeah, it will be mounted very
bolted.
very
Yeah.
securely, and
Yeah.
it would be a difficult piece to remove in a timely manner.
And hopefully the motion would catch it and the police
Yeah.
would respond.
It's
quickly.
unfortunate that we have to even bring it up, but I just want you
Understood.
guys to talk to whoever's mounting it to make sure it's secure as possible.
He's right over there.
Yeah.
Screwed on tight.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will.
It's not going anywhere.
We are also having a fundraiser that night for Nick's scholarship. So, and we are going to be doing a dedication of the memorial. So we would like to invite you all there if you could be there after
Once
the
you
game.
repeat the date and
Yeah,
time.
what's the date?
Oh yeah, it's our first home game, which is Friday, September 16th at Sage Park. The game is at 6:30, and the dedication will be immediately following.
Oh,
Okay.
great. Good
Okay.
job.
Thank you.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So, the motion, motion was on the floor to vote. I think all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Good luck, guys, with the memorial here. Good luck with your season. And we'll see you on the 16th, I'm sure.
Thanks.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks.
guys.
Okay.
Now you're going to have a new number 4.
Yes, new number 4, which was the former number 15. Okay. All right, so what do we got, Denise?
The town had previously entered into the redevelopment project grant agreement with CIL of Kensington Incorporated, which, as you know, is the old Sherry Cup building and the condos, and it was in phases, and the main portion of the project involved, obviously, the brownfields remediation, renovation of the Sherwood Tool, factory, into 71 condo units. That is now complete. There were payments that were forthcoming to the developer as different phases were completed, with the intent to pay them completely with the finishing of the townhouses across the street from the main building. For various reasons, CIL has not finished the townhouses across the street, not for any reasons other than just timing and things such as that. And so there is one final installment that is due them. If you've gone by the area recently, there have been some mowing or cutting of the grass. There was some concern that that area was being let kind of go a little bit in some bad repair. So it was felt that if CIL would do certain plantings of maybe wildflowers and make the area a little bit more desirable until they get to the actual construction of the townhouses, perhaps next spring, that we would enter into an agreement or have the council bless the payment of 1/2 of the remainder that is due them for the final installment. So what this is a request to approve the entering into an amendment number 2 to the redevelopment original agreement between the town and CIL to provide that CIL would make landscape improvements at considered 1 Main Street, and that we would make half of the final grant payment in the amount of $137,500. We have Mr. Schwendy from CIL is here. Jim Mahoney, who has been instrumental in the beginning and the end and the middle of this project, has come all the way down from Maine to address this and many other items on tonight's agenda. So if there are any questions or concerns, they're here.
Okay. Questions on this before we
Make the motion first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We'll discuss it.
I will make a motion that, subject to review and approval of the Corporation Council, the town manager be authorized to enter into amendment number 2 to the redevelopment agreement between the town and CIL Development of Kensington Incorporated to provide that CIL would make the landscape improvements at 1 Main Street, and then town would make half the final grant payment of $137,500. The balance of the grant, the final $137,500, will be paid when the new condo portion of the project is complete and certificates of occupancy are granted for 85 housing units.
Okay, second on that for
Second.
discussion?
Just
All
have
right.
a
Discussion.
question on, does this give them any time frame of when they have to start? It's been vacant for a while, so I don't know if by giving them half, CIL is saying okay, that's going to push us up a little bit so we can start in the spring? Because if they're starting in the spring planting wildflowers at this point,
No, they're going
seems
to plant
crazy.
now in the fall.
Okay, okay. Is there any way to kind of get some,
I'm not sure if that's.
you know, is the spring, is that reasonable expectation at this point, or no, or we just don't know? I don't know.
Good evening, Ken Schwendy from CIL, the President and CEO. It's an excellent question. I wish I could give you a definitive answer. We essentially are looking at this on a quarterly basis and determining whether the market's recovered enough to move forward. So far, every quarter, we look at it and say, not time yet. So I would love to say that we can start in the spring, but I can't guarantee it. The market for condos in that area has just not recovered. You may remember that this project goes back to beginning the year of the Great Recession. The fact that we're able to get the first 3 phases done, I'm very pleased with, but the 4th phase is waiting on market essentially. So sorry, I can't answer it more clearly.
No, that's
than
okay.
that.
So my question is, what does the 137 do? Does that plant wildflowers? I mean, what is the purpose of
It was a good
137?
faith effort to, well, there's 2 reasons, basically. One was a good faith effort in working with CIL to get something done there. But also, we have, the money has been borrowed. We need to expend it within a certain amount of time for arbitrage and those reasons as well. And so there is an effort to spend the money, basically. And so rather than just give them the money for, I don't want to say nothing, but for just because they're nice, it was an effort to do something collaboratively to get something done to make the concerns of some of the area residents addressed.
Could I also add, it's more than wildflowers. We're actually
Yeah.
talking about adding some curbing to close off the parking lot, removing a gravel parking lot, planting some trees that would have to be removed later. That was the main reason that we said we'd prefer to do it. If we could get part of this money back, we would be happy to do it, but we weren't really willing to just go forward and do it because we're going to have to take some of the things back out when we do the construction. But I think it does need to be cleaned up. So we're happy to cooperate with the town on it.
So, no, go ahead. Yes.
Who owns the property now?
We do.
CIL.
Well, it's owned by CIL of Kensington. The homeowners association controls now the maintenance, but we're still the declarant, so we still own it and control the property.
Property owner, you're subject to the same regulations as the rest of us that own property.
Yes. Yes.
And forgive me, I wasn't involved in the initial deal. The grant was based on completion of the entire project, correct?
It was broken into 4 phases. I don't know, Jim, if you want to discuss it since you were here too.
I can just quickly touch on it. It was $1.1 million. It was really to help them with the brownfield cleanup of the site. I think this town's primary focus was the factory. We felt like, that in a lot of cases, again, around the state, we've seen these factories that if they're vacant for a long period of time, tend to be problems. I mean, they burn down, they have fire, things happen. And CIL stepped up, as Kent said. It ended up being a tough timing thing, but it was difficult. It was a difficult market. It was a difficult project. They agreed to do it. The town agreed to do the $1.1 million, but we set these 4 milestones, and so that we would be assured the project would go forward, and also that we would get the tax revenue to more than offset our costs. And we did projections at that time, which we've exceeded. With the project, they've done a fabulous job. Obviously, with the primary project was the 71 units. They also knocked down the other building. Again, we didn't want to leave an eyesore there. Obviously, we're going to take it now with this project up a level in terms of maintenance and improvement of the lot, so that it's more compatible with the neighborhood. But that's kind of we staged it rather than again give them $1.1 million up front.
The original deal was they'd get the balance of the grant upon completion
Of the whole project, right. Now we're taking the 4th payment, which we've made 3 already.
Right.
Taking the 4th payment, splitting it in half, and
So
saying,
if they ever build the condos, will they repay the $137,000 to the town?
I'd have to look at the agreement again to see what their
Well,
default
you're telling me
procedure.
the deal's the deal, now you want to change the deal.
Well, it's up to the council. If the council doesn't want to change the deal, then it's, but we're presenting it again in good faith that we've had a good relationship with CIL. They've done what they said they're going to do. They did Depot Crossing, which is a big problem for the town. As town manager indicated, we, based on projections that we thought that we would need the money, it was bonded. Finance department asked us about the possibility of spending the money. We said, okay, we'll look at that, and it came up with this idea of let's improve the property and spend half the money.
Yes, sir.
Just a couple of questions. The value of the landscaping or curbing and other things, how much is that, and how much is the amount that will have to be redone?
You can answer that, but I do want to say one more thing, is that we also have a bond, substantial bond for this project that we still have in place also. So we have security beyond the other $137,500.
Yeah, we haven't bid it yet, so I don't have the exact numbers, but we're estimating it's probably around $40,000 to $50,000 of improvements. I didn't do a breakdown of how much would have to be redone, but I think the only thing that would remain would be, actually even the curbing comes out. So basically it all gets removed afterwards.
Okay, so
Can I ask
40 to
Corporation
50,000.
Council if we could put a clause in this amendment that says if Phase 4 is not completed, we will get back the 137.5?
Typically, we would put a clawback in an amendment like this, and it would be triggered by a date.
So if,
So if you
And I
want to
guess
say if the project isn't completed by
certain date.
And we could
X
come back
year.
and amend that if we
Right,
needed to,
right.
right? That date could be amended at some
Right.
future point.
Yes.
And you couldn't change we're talking, you're thinking the amount to do this work is 40 to 50,000, is that your rough estimate?
That's the rough estimate we have
So
now, yeah.
we couldn't give you part of that, we gotta give you the whole thing, is that, you could just,
It's the council's
Yeah,
decision
I mean-
as to what amount, if any,
I don't know.
you're going to advance.
Yeah, I don't
and
necessarily.
under what conditions.
Right, I don't necessarily disagree maybe with cleaning some of that up, because it is a little bit of an eyesore, and I guess we have no completion time, but I don't know about why I would give them the whole amount for 40, I'd give them almost 40,000 for $40,000 job. Why would?
Is that
I
part
don't
of the
know.
bonding issue, Denise, that we have to expend a certain amount?
Well, I don't think that that's going to make that much of a difference as to what we may eventually pay in any kind of arbitrage fees or anything. I don't know that we haven't really done the exploration with our bond counsel yet. We talked about it briefly, but he has yet to. I know that there are changes in the interest rate that may be needed to pay it back, but I'm not sure that that will make a difference. I don't know.
I would just say if we could put that clause in and then maybe wait to see what the actual cost is, have the cost dependent on the RFP, and that we could,
We would
however
rather
you wanna
just
handle
withdraw
that.
the request. It's not worth our time to go back and forth and nickel and dime the thing. We thought it was a good thing to do. We thought it was in cooperation with the town.
Yeah.
I would suggest that if you don't want to do it, it's no problem for us.
Yeah.
But I'm just afraid that making it more complicated is going to cause heartache somewhere.
Yeah, I think, listen, you've done a good job up to this point, but and we just don't know, though. We have no completion
Right.
date to give you.
And I can't give you one, so I
No, I
can't.
know, I get that.
Yeah,
I
so
get that,
I don't feel right trying
Yeah,
to
no.
convince you.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, we know. Yeah.
Quick
Yes.
question, was the idea to try and clean this up to make it usable for the tenants that are living there, like a park or more parking or something, or just to keep people off of it until you're ready maybe to go to the next phase?
Well, the idea was to make it look better until we move forward with the next phase, because if it's not next spring, let's say it ends up being another year after that, because it's like we wouldn't be starting in the fall. So if we can't get a spring start, it's really, we lose another year. So my concern was that it would look, it's a mowed yard, so it looks like a big mowed field. That's what it'll keep looking like. I think it could look better than that. And technically we still have 17 years on the development rights, so theoretically it could be 15 or 16 years. So, mowed field is okay, we can keep mowing it.
Just to
Yeah.
be clear too, I mean, we approached CIL about this,
Nope.
again, because of the bond, the fact that we had bonded the money and tried to figure out something we could do. We thought that it would be good for the neighbors because, you know, it's been a while now, so maybe some improvements in their backyard would be appreciated. Again, if the
Yeah.
council doesn't see it that way, fine.
And I will say we've had a fantastic relationship with CIL, and I don't, for any, you know, I don't want anyone to think that I am concerned about you guys not coming through on your end of the deal. So I wouldn't be opposed to this, but
Mayor?
Yes.
The reason I ask for the amount of that is just to understand the finances around it. If there's, you know, because of that, you can then cover a little bit more. I was just trying to understand that, because if there's a bonding approach and it says, okay, we bond at a lower rate, we could compare that dollar amount to what the cost of carrying 40,000 for a year instead of 1 year.
Right, and I'll
2
let
years.
Kent answer, but I would say also that we gave him the 1.1 million to do the brownfield cleanup. That's long done, but obviously we wanted all these other things to happen too as part of our arrangement with them. So that's why we set up the 4 payments. And we really modeled this on Windsor did a similar transaction, and we thought it was a good idea, and we're, again, with the council and Corporation Council at the time and structured this, and I think so far it's worked very well.
Yeah, the other thing we've been doing and continue to do is look at how we could modify the plan to try to make it fit the market better. So one of the things we looked at was whether we could modify the condo types to try to get more first floor bedroom units and that type of thing. So the other thing that the extra money would allow us to do is to continue to do some of that planning and architectural work to try to keep the project moving. We keep trying to find a way to make it work, but we can't move forward unless we're going to at least break even. At this point, I would move forward if we could break even, because I want to finish the project too. But we can't move forward if we're going to be losing money, and that's every time we analyze it so far, we keep coming back to the same thing, that, you know, it doesn't work. So, you know, the extra money would be somewhat used for trying to find other solutions. I can't guarantee that we would, though. So that's why I don't,
Yeah,
you know, I don't
understand.
want to make it sound conditional. And I appreciate the comments about the relationship. We feel the same way, whether you approve this or not. As Jim said, you know, he brought it to us, seemed like a good idea. I wasn't quite sure why you'd want to do it. But we're happy to move forward if you want.
thank you.
I just one thing.
Yes.
I do plan to abstain from the vote, seeing
Oh.
as how I do own a condo at Sherwood
Oh,
Falls.
okay.
But it's
Okay.
beautiful. You guys did a great job, and I have heard from a lot of like residents across, like in that general area, that they would like the field cleaned up. So just for whatever it's worth, I'm throwing it out there. But I will abstain.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I'm undecided myself on this. I would feel more comfortable if we modified the amount myself, but I don't know if that makes that much of a difference, just what they're going to spend on it, give them what they need to clean it up with, or, yeah.
Mayor, we could
Yeah.
either explore it financially
Right.
as to and contractually, or as he suggested that they pull that away. And I know it's kind of offered by the town, but it's our first chance to talk about it. So
Right.
I feel more comfortable with pulling back on it.
Yeah, we haven't really, I guess, talked about this, so anyway, I guess let's move the motion, and we could see what happens. So we have them, right? Did you read the motion, or?
There's a motion on the floor.
Yeah, there's a motion on the floor, right? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Abstain.
One abstention. Okay, thank you, Kristen. Okay, so the motion.
Did everyone vote?
I didn't.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. Huh?
I didn't hear
I
everybody
didn't
vote.
hear.
I believe we all voted.
I said
we ask
nay.
Have a roll
There's
call.
abstention.
Let's ask for a roll call
Sure.
vote. Yeah.
All those in favor?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Yeah,
vote?
roll call. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Councilor Campanelli.
Abstain.
Councilor Evans.
Nay.
Councilor Luddy.
Nay.
Councilor Paynessa. Councilor Rochette.
Aye.
Councilor Rosso.
Aye.
And Mayor Kaczynski.
Nay.
Okay. It's defeated.
Bring it back.
All right.
Bring it back.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. All right, thank you. All right, so we are now on number,
Pick up the pace.
Old number 4.
oh, number 4, well, so,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, back to, we'll just go to number 4.
This council agenda item and the next regarding the library are part of this year's budget. This first one is the underground oil tank, which has serviced the boilers at the library, is over 25 years old, no longer in use. Insurance no longer covers the tank and it needs to be removed. Off the state budget list, Environmental Services, Inc. of South Windsor is licensed to administer the removal and has provided pricing. $13,969 plus a 20% contingency for any unforeseen environmental issues. Total of $16,763.
Okay, motion on this?
I will move to approve utilizing State of Connecticut DAS contract 14PSX0314 for the oil tank removal and award the contract to Environmental Services, Inc. of South Windsor, Connecticut in the amount of $13,969 and authorize the town manager to enter into the change orders if necessary to bring the total contract value not to exceed $16,763.
Second on this?
Second.
Discussion? All those in-
Mayor,
Yes,
I have
yes.
some questions.
Sure.
Mr. Solak, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes.
Thank you. Collectively, within the budget for this area in the public buildings, the narrative at the time said $15,000 for this particular item. And I'll refer to the second one had similarly was budgeted at $25,000. They're both coming in for the values being requested over those values, and wanted to understand the impact of that. In fact, it's interesting that the $1,763 over the $15,000 estimate from your budget is the amount that would then cover the amount over budgeted on the next item. So I'm not sure where you want to go with this, other than I have some interest on understanding whether we could go at the $15,000 budgeted. If there's issues, then we'd come back, and that would then potentially go into contingency. Probably not, but I wanted to understand where you were at with that, Mr. Solak.
Sure. The base contract for the oil tank removal is under our $15,000 allocation. The contingency is set forth should we find some contaminated soil once the tank's removed. We certainly hope we will not. However, it's an unknown. That's why we included that. And then the boiler project did go over budget a little bit from the allocation that we set forth last year, just due to inflation. So I think collectively we're on budget for the base contract work if we add the two of them together within reason. We do have some capital money that carried over from projects previously that came in under budget that we can use for contingency if we need it. But we're hoping that we're pretty much right on target for what we had allocated.
So if we did put it at 15,000 and you came back and said, well, we do need to exceed that, would we then have to go through authorization? Would that be a concern, Mr. Solak or Ms. McNair?
There is money in that account should we need it.
Or you could lower the contingency a little bit just to
Sure.
get below it. Instead of doing a 20% on this one, you could do a 10 or a 15, and that would solve it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm basically asking, to see if it could make some sense here, and then if we need to.
On each of them.
Yeah.
Although the second
No,
one doesn't
not
have
the
a
second one you can't, because
contingency.
that's
That
the
didn't
quoted
have-
amount.
yeah.
I was just thinking on this particular one.
Yeah, it's more of a timing where if, the tank's removed, the ground's dug up, the parking lot rips apart. We don't want to have to wait for the next council meeting to authorize the changes needed. So we want it to give us a little bit of contingency to work with should we find some contaminated soil.
Let me ask you, in addition, is there, and I don't think we've authorized anything yet that's over the 10,000 figure we needed to discuss, but is there anything that's already been done that came in under the estimated budget at that time that may say, yeah, we've got our cushion there and we can do that?
No preliminary testing has been performed.
No, what I'm saying is there's a whole bucket there of items, and this is one of those items that was built into that. I just wondered if there was in that. Because if we look at the authorization fund available balance, it was a budget of $240,000. And it says that we've encumbered 4,700, we've spent 5,200, so there's about 9,900 out there. And do we anticipate that coming in under the 9,900?
Yeah, the other projects identified in the current budget this fiscal year, all those numbers haven't come back yet.
Yeah, it's
active
early in the
proposals,
fiscal
yeah.
year, so he's just starting on the
Right.
projects that he has planned for this year,
Right.
so we don't have
These
a
are
good
the most,
handle.
These are the most straightforward projects where we don't have to go for RFPs, RFQs, consultants. It's a pretty straightforward project, so we wanted to eliminate the easy work we can do before the ground freezes and the heat needs to go on.
By approving this is not going to be spent unless there's an unforeseen situation as far as the contingency. So it would still remain within the budget, I believe. But it's just there are other projects that would be affected if it does go up that much. It may take, since the budget was based on a $15,000 amount, if it goes up, then something else might have to not get done if too many of the projects run more expensive than planned. Being early in the year, it's difficult to tell.
We have been using our GovDeals proceeds to go into this capital account for our 38 projects. That is our contingency should we need it if future projects go over budget.
You said this account or another account?
It's this, our capital, our 302 account.
Yeah, 240. Mayor, I'm of the thinking of amending it to the $15,000 figure. And I'm just open to hearing anyone else's concern about that.
Council, with all respect too, that when we do our budget allocations, there's a time frame in between when we ask for funding and when we go back out for active proposals, so they do fluctuate a little bit.
We don't have the benefit of the state contracts in March that come out for July 1st either, so there may have been an increase, and I'm not sure in this particular instance if that was the case, but sometimes there is an increase in the DAS contracts from year to year, so I'm not sure that the 15,000 now that it may be a little higher.
And without the specifics on what you made the assumption on 15,000, we're both guessing. Unless you have that, and I would be fine to look at the numbers and understand that.
Correct. We did receive a proposal, a few proposals actually last year when we put this number in the budget. So
Was it a 20% contingency at that time?
correct. The proposal we received that we're presenting tonight has increased slightly from what we received last year.
Yes.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the only contingency could be contaminated soil. Everything else in this project is included.
Correct.
If it's contaminated soil, we're stuck with it one way or another. It's gotta go. I'm not in favor of spending more money, and the 14,000 is under budget a little bit. So it is what it is. I mean, it might be $10,000 worth of follow. $1,700 doesn't remove much contaminated soil. You're lucky if you get the closure report written for $1,700.
Right, so you'd be spending it anyway, not having to come back to council because it would be less than $10,000.
Correct.
Right. Okay. At least this way it's in front of us and we know it.
So it looks like the inflation on that's about 11, 12%. Running the numbers. Is that what you're seeing across that? And are we at risk then maybe at others hitting that? Or is this the only contract that you know that's going to be impacted at the moment?
A lot of our projects we're going back and revisiting after budget approvals. It's been a moving target on many items. Some have held the line across the board and some have gone up. To say the standard 2 or 3% inflation, it's hard to say.
Okay.
But we're certainly the proposal, I can dig it up for you, but we're very close to where we were a year ago, but I think it did go up about $1,000 just due to cost of trucking, asphalt, disposal fees. I'm not really sure what governs it, but I know those are some of the items.
Okay. Well, I know your team will look closely at it, and it sounds like there isn't, that we ought to go forward with the amount and then hope that goes well.
Yes, thank you.
And I guess the concern some folks have is they see, well, that's the budgeted amount, and then the contractor comes and says, oh, it happens to be that. But I trust your team will keep an eye on it and make things happen the right way.
We're hoping the tank's not leaking at all.
Exactly.
Okay, any further comments? If not, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
You can stay.
Yeah.
Number 5, yeah, I guess
Yeah,
there's
the
more
next
coming on
one is
number-
his as well.
Number 5.
This is the number 2 boiler that services the library and community center. It's 25 years old. It's begun to deteriorate. Funding was in the budget as we just discussed. It will be replaced by a new high-efficiency, cost-effective gas boiler. And United's utilizing the state of Connecticut DAS contract, Train US of Rocky Hill would supply, install, and perform all necessary work for $26,726.54.
Okay, thank you. Motion on this?
I will make a motion to ditto everything the town manager. No, I'll read it. I'm just kidding. I make a motion to utilize State of Connecticut DAS contract number 12PSX0153 and award the bid to Train US of Rocky Hill, Connecticut, and to supply, install, and perform all necessary work for the new gas boiler for the library and community center in the amount of $26,726.54.
Thank you. Second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 6, Denise.
Yes, this is the third in a series of master municipal agreements that the Department of Transportation has given us. The first was the construction projects. The second was the rights of way. This was looked at by Corporation Council. This being a state document, there's not a lot of wiggle room in this, but this is just the master, and then when there's a specific project, they would give the letter of authorization that goes along with that. I tried to check to see if we have used the prior 2 master agreements, and we haven't yet, as far as I can tell, but Jack had indicated that in Litchfield he also did the same thing. These are pretty much standard. I'm not sure that there's much choice if we wish to do business with the state.
Okay, thanks. Motion on this?
Move to approve a resolution authorizing town manager Denise M. McNair to sign the proposed master municipal agreement for preliminary engineering projects on behalf of the town of Berlin.
Thank you. Second on this?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mayor, just a question for Corporation Council, town manager. Have we had any feedback on any pushback from any of the other municipalities, primarily in the area of at their sole discretion, even though it's supposed to be mutually discussed? There's several instances of, at their sole discretion.
I've reviewed the MMA for at least Guilford, North Haven, and Hampden. I think the only municipality that I've heard of insisting on any changes being made is Greenwich. And the MMA in and of itself is fine. The primary risk shifting provision in the MMA has to do with the state not reimbursing for any costs attributable to errors and omissions. And that's a very easy issue for the town to deal with by simply incorporating all the terms of the MMA into any professional services contract with your third-party vendor, making sure that you have an adequate indemnification provision, making sure that you have adequate professional liability insurance with a low deductible from your third-party vendor. So the MMA, really, that's the, for what this is, which is preliminary engineering services, that's the way that you deal with the only real burdensome provision.
So if we had hired an architect in there, they really came in much higher than their estimates and so forth, then the impact of this would still be minimal. We would then have to turn to our own insurance to cover that, or we would build it into the contract with the architect to ensure that they cover that risk.
Well, if your errors and omissions typically, as you know, take the form of items that are left out of a design that are necessary to be added to the project later and there's an upcharge associated with that, or design errors that result in constructability challenges and rework. If you're talking about a scenario where you want to have a contractual provision that requires the design professional to design to the budget, that's separate from the MMA. That's something that you certainly can negotiate if you put it up front in an RFP or an RFQ.
Okay.
And you can also have provisions. What I've done on school projects is have provisions that require the design professional, if bids come in over budget, to provide design services as basic contract services rather than additional services. In other words, you have to keep providing design services without additional charge until we get bids that are at or below our budget.
Great. Now, that'll be great value if we need to enter into those kind of situations with this particular master agreement. Thank you.
Okay, great. Motion on the floor. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thanks. Number 7.
As council recalls, the town had entered into an option agreement with the Berlin Housing Authority regarding 143 Percival Avenue, which is the old Knights of Columbus building, for the development of low-income senior housing. Originally, there was an area of 8.6 acres with an added little piece near the top of near Percival Avenue, added in Amendment 1. This agreement has twice been amended. Amendment 1 modifying the land area to add approximately 0.2 acres and then deleting certain conditions precedent. And Amendment 2 was to extend the option expiration date to this October 1st. If you recall, this came before the council about a year ago, roughly at this time. During the time that there was a title search done, it was discovered that there was a conservation easement in favor of the state of Connecticut, who gave some grant funds for the development of the soccer fields, as well as the area Percival Field. So that part of the area is encumbered by the conservation easement. We are now finding out that to release the conservation easement would take approximately a year or so, and it may require the substitution of other land for that land that would be unencumbered or removed from below the conservation easement. In reviewing the information to look at the extension of the option agreement, the staff has identified that most, if not all, of the 50 approved units could fit on the original parcel without the piece that's encumbered by the conservation easement, the state conservation easement. So it was felt that if the extension was to be given tonight, that perhaps there would be an amendment furthering the fact that the piece that's encumbered by the conservation easement wouldn't have to go along with the extension. Joe Bajorski is here from the Berlin Housing Authority, and we do have a map to explain it further if necessary, because it is a little confusing. I know two of the council members were not present last year at the time that the extension was approved.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, probably for the benefit of all of us, probably need a little bit maybe of just a very limited history, Joe, or as much as you want to give Joe. But, and then
Got a
we'll...
big folder there.
Yeah, maybe not. Don't read through the whole folder, perhaps. But
and that's just for the pre-development portion.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, I mean, this has come to light. Denise has explained it. So I think that's why we're taking a look at it. Obviously, the option is up for renewals.
Yeah, so I'll give you as brief description of what's occurred as I can. Please feel free to ask any questions once I'm done. In 2010, we approached the town about selecting a parcel to develop some additional housing. We currently have a wait list that goes on for years, and people die off that list instead of get into housing. So we felt the need for additional housing. The town staff identified a parcel of land, which was this 8-acre parcel, which encompassed the Knights of Columbus building and some remnant parcels from Percival Field. Upon receiving that land, we entered into a option agreement with the town of Berlin in 2012, roughly, to allow us to move forward with obtaining $500,000 roughly in pre-development funding to get the whole site permitted and get the pre-financing portion up and running. Basically, it took about 3 years up until last year to get all that done. We had to rewrite some zoning regulations. We had to go through the whole 824 process twice. We had to go through the planning and zoning special permit application process. So, it took some doing. In August, our attorney went and did the title search on the property in preparation for the transfer of title. And this was August of 2015, and he discovered that there was a conservation easement on the property. So when your attorney calls you on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock at night, it's never usually a good sign, and in this case, it was not. We approached the town back in August. We, got another extension. In the meantime, we've been working to get the process, or find out how to go about getting the conservation easement lifted. As we're approaching the end of the first year, we're realizing that, neither option that we're looking at is going to be a simple option. So I had a meeting with the mayor, our economic development director, and Jim Mahoney, and also, my apologies, Maria DeMarco from DeMarco Development Companies here. She's our developer and property manager on our complexes, so she's been assisting us in this process. She was present for that meeting. We sat down and discussed the particulars of the issues at hand, and basically the necessity of moving forward with the 8 acres and the necessity of getting the conservation easement either lifted or somehow getting the grantor transferred from the town of Berlin to the Berlin Housing Authority and keeping the conservation easement in place on the roughly 4 acres of land that's under the conservation easement. So that is what brings us here. This basically our option is expiring in October, and we do not have sufficient time in which to lift the conservation easement.
Yeah, so going forward, that I guess brought up some discussion with staff and about that additional 4-acre parcel with the conservation easement on it. If we would now separate that out, which would end the problem with the conservation easement. And then some further discussions, although not perhaps lengthy enough to make a decision tonight, but and I want to talk some more with our corporation counsel too. I know he's been reviewing this too. If we took that 4-acre parcel off, you would have enough to build your project with the remaining. What is it? I think it's probably 3. Is it 3? It's about 4. The other piece
4
too,
and
right?
change,
About
yeah.
4.6.
So that would, kind of end that
If only
discussion
were,
with the.
if only it were that simple.
Yes, well, of course. I know. Well, that's why I said we obviously more discussion, but I mean that's just the initial to take it up to why we're
Yes.
talking here.
All right.
Yeah.
The problem we have is the whole parcel, the financing aspect of it, the planning aspect of it was predicated on the 8 acres. So all the site plan approvals that are currently in place are predicated on the 8 acres. The 824 reviews were done on the 8 acres. The inland wetlands approval was done on the 8 acres. I could go on. Additionally, we've had appraisals done on the property on the 8-acre parcel. And those appraisals were used in obtaining the pre-development funding. In addition to that, that 8-acre, the value of the 8 acres as they currently exist was used by us in scoring our financing application. And that amount was listed as the town's contribution, because under most of the financing programs out there, the town has to have a monetary contribution. So in lieu of actual cash, the value of the land was used, and that value was assessed on the full 8 acres. So at this point, if we move forward and reduce the parcel down to 4 acres, we have a problem. And that problem would be either the town needs to sign a check for the equivalent value of the 4 acres to cover the town's contribution, or we basically hang up our parcel, the town can give us a check for $500,000 to cover the pre-development funding, and we can move on to a different parcel somewhere else. Our attorney advises us basically that there is no magic wand to wave with respect to the 824 or this permitting process and anything else, inland wetlands and all those regulatory processes we went through. So basically at that point in time, we have no money to redo this whole process, because if we were to give up the 4 acres of land, we would have to go through the 824 process again. We'd have to go get our engineers to redo the site plan, site work, the plans, the surveys, all that. That would incur a cost, which we do not have, and I doubt the state would give us money for it. So we'd be looking to the town to cover those costs to move forward on that. You know, so like I said, removing that 4 acres, while it seems simple on paper, opens a Pandora's box of problems for us.
We didn't we didn't know that those 4 acres had the conservation easement on it, apparently, when you went for your financing?
No, that's correct.
Which would probably make a big difference, I would imagine.
Oh, had I known the 4 acres was on there,
Yes,
I wouldn't
obviously,
have, move forward with it. We took it upon, the town
we
identified the
didn't know.
property.
I mean,
so
we
yeah.
are where we are,
Yeah.
but I mean, the point is, I guess now we have a piece of property that's probably decidedly less valuable, and we see the trouble we're having trying to get the conservation easement
Correct.
lifted, even though we have, our
Correct.
representative and everyone else working on it to try and get it done, and it's not getting done. So I'm not sure, if that plays into the decision going forward or not, but I mean, that's why I just wanted
Well,
to make sure, so.
We were prepared to update the appraisals because
Okay.
there has been a significant period of time that has occurred between the time we moved forward on this to the current point in time. So as a standard course of business, you would update your appraisals and make sure that, they reflect current market conditions and trends and the like. With the conservation easement, it would definitely have an impact on the appraisal, but we could, kind of plan for that in that process. Totally removing the 4.4 acres would be a lot more problematic.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
So when we looked at this before, I thought there was one corner of the property that there was an issue, and I don't recall where that was on this. Or was pulling on that string what helped us uncover this, or
No.
did we resolve that at that time and then we found this?
Again, I'm not here to do a post-mortem on how this wasn't uncovered.
No, I'm not looking for that either. I'm just a little history for me so I can get from point A to point
Okay,
B.
that 0.2 acres of a parcel was utilized to allow us to access a waterway to maintain the inland wetlands requirements for stormwater retention and also for floodwater diversion. So I guess there's some kind of catch basin, concrete pipe that flows under Percival Field. So that 0.2 acres would allow us to complete our stormwater retention facility and allow us also access to that concrete pipe to maintain it, so that the housing authority would be able to maintain it versus having the town.
Is that on the 4 acres or on the 4.6? Or you may not know, and you don't have to know.
That is, I believe, mostly located on Knights of Columbus parcel.
Yeah, I think it's in addition to the 4.6 original acres.
Yeah.
Okay.
So part of it, I think, is Knights Percival Field, but this has a convoluted history of land ownership. When it came from the Knights, went over to Percival Field for the baseball field. And
But did we resolve that?
Yes, that's
I thought that was
successfully
resolved, and
yes.
that's why I wanted to
No,
just-
that 0.2 acres is
It's not
successfully
another issue
resolved.
out there we need to work with.
We are good to go. In fact, we were ready to apply for financing last August, but we've pretty much held everything up until we can resolve this conservation easement.
And now this puts us off, so it's been, when did this start? I forget. It was 4 years ago?
2012 was when the initial,
So
what do you call it, option agreement was signed with the town.
4 years ago, and now with this conservation easement, we're another year down the road, I guess, till we get this thing.
Per Jim Mahoney's memo, yes.
Yeah.
It would take roughly a year and cost, I don't know the exact dollar amount, but there would be some cost to acquiring parcels.
Who's paying the cost?
That's a good question. Like I said, it's the town's property, so the town is normally endeavored to remove the conservation easement. Now, one of the options that I pursued, and I'm pursuing with Representative Arasimwitz's office to lobby on our behalf, is having a legal function where the grantor would be assigned from the town of Berlin to the Berlin Housing Authority, maintaining the conservation easement in place post-transfer, but just allowing the grantor on the property to change, and that wouldn't require any kind of additional cost outside of the legal fees to draft that up, but you wouldn't have to have a swap, you wouldn't have to identify additional properties. The basic goals of the conservation easement will be kept in place on the said property. It's just a matter of doing a paperwork change so that the town of Berlin is no longer the grantor, it becomes the Berlin Housing Authority.
Would that change the appraisal or the assessed amount?
I do not know. If it does, I mean, the land still has some value to it, and we'd still have title to that land, so it's not like the land will be absolutely worthless.
I guess I'm asking along the lines of financing, if it says, okay, now because of this, you had X million of dollars that would finance, but because now there's this conservation easement on it, it's X minus.
Yeah, there'll be some impact, but I can't sit here today and tell you.
I'm not
what that
asking for a
impact
number.
will
I'm
be.
just relatively that there could be some impact.
And there might be a way to make that impact up on the other side versus different financing tranches. There are various groups out there that will provide monies for certain things, and just a matter of making application to those groups for conservation or open space preservation. So there's a way. There are areas where we could apply to kind of make up that difference if that did indeed occur.
Corporation Counsel, Mr. Donfred, do you have any lights to turn on this?
Obviously, I wasn't involved in the transaction. I haven't seen the title, assuming that there's an owner's title policy. I know there was a warranty deed, but it's kind of a bizarre situation that nobody picked up on the conservation easement when there was financing and presumably third-party appraisals involved. But certainly, the appraisal would be impacted if the appraisal was done on a basis that didn't give consideration to the conservation easement. You would typically expect that a fee appraisal would be impacted by that. So, a lot of moving parts.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. Do we have the answer to all the moving parts tonight, or can we? Have you? I know you've done some research on it. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I'd like to get my hands on the transaction file just to better understand what went down and how deep in the hole it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be prudent to make sure we have all the, since this just came to light, Joe, that's, it just came to light now. I mean, I think it's worthwhile just going back and just exploring it a little bit and seeing, because, I mean, there's no, I guess, magic answer here, but.
Well, I think at a minimum, what we need to do is get the option agreement extended out, because.
What's the deadline to do that?
It's October 1st, I believe, or October 30th, something like that. I can't remember. So,
give them time to look.
Yeah, you still got some time to look at it before the option agreement gets extended, right? If the town attorney can dig in.
October 31st.
Yes,
October 31st. October 31st.
Right.
So it has to be approved by us by then. Right. So it's we got some time.
Formal request for no meeting on Halloween, please.
No, we won't have enough. So that would be my suggestion, but I would, certainly open it up to the council for their questions, concerns.
I think the council's at a crux here, because I think we're at the point where we either move forward on this project or we torpedo the project. I mean, that's where we're at right now. I mean, there's a cost either way.
Right. Well, yeah, obviously, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't see, though, and again, not having all the facts and not having all the history, certainly it wasn't on the council then, but why it couldn't go forward with just the 4 acres, if with 4.6 acres, whatever would fit the 2 buildings, which I think, if I remember from my planning and zoning days, we fit it into that 4.6 parcel without need of the extra piece, correct?
Correct, but if you look at the site plan approval, the site plan's on the whole 8 acres.
Okay.
So how do you go from point A to point B without going through the process again?
That's a good question.
And the other question also pertains to the 824, because you'd have to go through the whole 824 survey again. You'd have to go to the inland wetlands again, and again, I'm not, especially with inland wetlands, I know portions of that wetland that we're using for stormwater retention falls into the land that's covered by the conservation easement. So I can't guarantee that it'll successfully pass the inland wetlands process. So, I would prefer to work with what I have and
No, I got you.
not open any other potential problems
Yeah,
down
no,
the
we're
road.
trying to do that. Yeah, no, I get you. But
Yep.
So I would just feel more comfortable if we just, again, only because this thing just came to light, if we could just have our corporation council and perhaps planning and zoning and even talk to the chair of inland wetlands, just get a little bit of a consensus from some other town departments.
And I think the other consensus too is where's the money going to come from to allow the housing authority to go through the process? Because again, our consultants do not come for free, and as a housing authority, I don't have the time nor the money to pay them to move forward on this project.
Yeah.
So, the monies we incurred for this project came from the pre-development funding.
Yep.
The other issue we have is, I have Department of Housing that's kind of breathing down my neck, wondering what's happening with the money they've invested into this. So at some point, they're going to start pulling their financing or start calling the notes, so to speak. So, while we do have some time, I don't think we have a lot of time to play.
I agree.
So.
What do you think, Denise?
Well, if you want to continue it for 2 weeks, you can have Corporation Council take a look, and we can talk further about the process, because it will also cost the town, and if we need to go through the process to release the conservation easement, we'll need appraisals for the parcel that would be substituted for this parcel. So there will be costs on both sides.
I mean, either way, it's costing the town.
That's correct.
No matter what we do.
I think your cheaper alternative, if you look at the hierarchy of costs, your cheapest alternative would be to go with the substitution of grantors on the conservation easement. Your next least expensive is to find a substitute parcel. If we get into the whole bifurcation or reducing the size of the parcel, then your costs multiply exponentially, because you're talking about surveyors and going through the whole process of the inland wetlands approval, the 824 surveys, all that stuff. That's a lot of time and money and effort. I mean, just our project alone, we spent close to $500,000 on just to get to this point. So if we had to redo that whole process, you're probably talking about, I'm guessing, $150,000, $200,000 to get us, through all the different, maybe not that much, but in that ballpark, to get us through all the site plan amendments and, public hearings and everything else.
Today, as we sit, how far away are we from the first shovel in the ground? And I know I'm not holding you to this by any means. I'm just curious
About
to
what
know
year
what
for
your
financing?
opinion would be.
Oh, if we were to apply for financing today, there's a deadline coming up for November 4th. We would have some kind of word on financing by March. You're probably talking about a year, because once we'd have to close on the financing, go out to bid, go through the whole bid process.
A year from today.
A year from today.
For shovel in the ground.
Yeah.
If we can resolve.
If we could
the
close today,
conservation.
yeah.
I got you.
So, but you're looking roughly a year's time frame from the time we apply for financing to the time we can put a shovel into the ground.
Okay. So how did we put this on here, Denise? Do we need a? Okay. So would I mean, my opinion would be, I'd certainly welcome the other council members to jump in if they have any issues, to give it at least a couple of weeks to explore it a little bit further. Maybe move to.
It could be on the
table
next,
or
it
put
would
on-
just be put on the September 20th council meeting.
Yeah, I would like to make, if we have a motion for that, see what the votes gather us. Yes.
Unfortunately, I went to a class on Robert's rules, and if we table it, technically, we'd have to take it up again tonight. So I think the proper motion would be no action.
No.
And then
It's
refer
definitely
it to
not
The class did
another-
some good, I see. I'm glad to see that.
Thank you.
We could put it on for the 20th.
Yeah.
So what's the motion gonna be then?
No motion.
No motion.
There's a motion on the floor, but
Yes.
we're not going to act on it.
Yeah, okay. I don't think we even, called.
Didn't read it, no.
We didn't read the motion,
No.
we didn't even call the motion.
I don't.
There was
No,
no
we just
motion.
started, we just started
We
discussing.
started talking about it.
Right.
What the heck do I know?
So we're gonna, so what,
That'll give Attorney D'Onofrio time to.
right, which,
Talk
the next
to-
meeting, 2 weeks? Okay?
Mayor?
Go.
I'm here
good?
at your beck and call. So, you know.
I'm sure you are. I appreciate you coming tonight.
Yeah.
And, you
If
know,
I can't be here, I'll send someone in my stead.
I'm
But
sure you will. I mean, I think it's just a little complicated to, just to make sure we.
I understand, and I'm available if anybody's.
No, I know.
If somebody wishes to call me and have
Yeah.
a more in-depth discussion on
Yeah.
this, I'd be more than happy.
We
to
may do
so,
that.
so,
I
yep.
suspect we will do that.
Yes.
So, yeah. Dave.
They were just asking if we could have at least, and it maybe will be taken care of with our meeting minutes, but just those options in order of what we might be able to do, and then with the added insight of the existing contract and those options, we can better assess what we need to do next. And if I know we can't put hard numbers on it or dollars on
right,
it, but
right.
in descending order of at least. With the biggest bang with the least amount of bucks.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. We'll do that going forward. Okay. Great. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
Thanks,
Not a
Joe.
problem. Take care. Yep.
See you in a couple of weeks.
All right.
All right.
I look forward to the phone call.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll be talking before then. Thank you. Okay, number 8.
State of Connecticut DEEP has awarded the town a grant of $125,580 for Pistol Creek. It's the recreational trails program. The town had applied for it to make handicap accessible paths and some parking spaces over at Pistol Creek and resurface the existing cart paths. The grant requires 20% local match, $31,395, and if council recalls, this was to come from the fee in lieu of open space. So it's requested that the council appropriate the $125,580 State of Connecticut Recreational Trails Grant Program grant for Pistol Creek, and then authorize the use of $31,395 from the fee in lieu of open space.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Motion on this?
Move to appropriate $125,580. State of Connecticut Recreational Trails Grant Program. Grant for Pistol Creek to revenue account, state and federal grants, and expenditure account, Connecticut Rec Trails Grant, and authorize the use of $31,395 from the fee in lieu of open space account for use as a grant match. And also move to pass the attached resolution to authorize town manager to execute an assistance agreement with the state of Connecticut for state financial assistance related to the $125,580 recreational trails grant for Pistol Creek, to provide such additional information, to execute such other documents as may be required, to execute any amendments, decisions, revisions thereto, and act as the authorized representative of the town of Berlin.
Okay. Thank you. Second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. We did not. Didn't we do 9 already?
No.
Did we move that? Oh, yeah. Okay. Number 9.
No, Dave's
Sorry.
here talking about it, that's why it's in your head.
Oh, all right. There we go. Yeah, number 9.
Yeah, Forest and Machine is a family-owned and operated manufacturing business, and they are currently in Rocky Hill. They're proposing to relocate to Berlin and construct a new 55,000 square foot facility next to Precision Punch on Christian Lane. They are seeking, and the Economic Development Commission felt that the town's tax abatement policy, which provides a 3-year abatement, might be extended. Under the enabling statutes for the state, municipalities are allowed to do a period of not more than 7 years. So they are seeking to have a 7-year abatement schedule, which was recommended by the EDC in the amount of 50, 50, 40, 40, 30, and 10% over the 7 years. This will increase jobs in town. It's also going to be adding, this abatement is on only the addition, so the taxes will still exist on the underlying property.
Great.
And Chris is here to discuss any questions. And Jim.
Okay, great. Great. That's fantastic. So happy to see Forest Machine moving to town.
This is all plus tax revenue, right? We're
Correct.
not losing a single thing. This is
Right.
all positive.
Yes. Chris, what say you?
Sure. Yes, this is a little not necessarily normal as we've done. The state statute does allow the town to do up to a 7-year abatement, and it is on anything new to the property. So essentially, right now, there's a baseline of, let's call it $1. If it goes up to $10, the abatement will be on the additional $9. This gentleman who is in manufacturer of aerospace components had spoken with him a couple of months ago, and he was looking at a number of communities surrounding us. Middletown was at least one of them, and this was something that I think will help us for the fact that these other communities have the enterprise zone, which is a 50%, I say try again, 5-year 80% tax abatement, and towns actually get reimbursement on that one. So it's really advantageous for a town. The good thing is he's really going to be putting up a beautiful facility on probably the nicest piece of land we have in town. The nice thing too, he does do work with Precision Punch and a couple other folks in town. We're bringing at least 50 people, probably investing somewhere between $4.5 and $5.5 million in the project.
Excellent. This is great
That's
news.
fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. Great job, Chris, in working with Forest Machine and the whole town working with them.
Well, I'd also like to thank Director Riggins and her department. It was actually probably one of the quickest and most wonderful approvals we've ever had at P&Z because the work was done so diligently on her end.
That's great. Hats off
This
to
is awesome.
P&Z as well. Absolutely. And Helen. Very good. Okay, so can we have a motion on this?
Sure, move to approve a 7-year year abatement to Forest Machine for construction of a 55,000 square foot manufacturing building on Christian Lane with the attached abatement schedule as follows. Year 1, 50%, year 2, 50%, year 3, 40%, year 4, 40%, year 5, 30%, year 6, 30%, and year 7 at 10%.
Okay, great. Thank you. Second on that?
Second?
Any discussion?
Yeah, Mayor, just a question. Hard copy here, we have an amendment that lists a different value of the building going from 4.5 to 3.9. Where was the initial 4.5 given to us, and what was the change to the 3.9?
Sure. The 3.9 was given to me by Joe Ferraro, our assessor. He had looked at the numbers, and he happened to get back to me, and the time frame was after I'd gotten everything in. So the adjusted numbers are more based on actual reality. What he did is he looked at a couple different buildings, including the one next door, and he felt the valuation I had was too high.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions, concerns? All right, if not,
Awesome.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, great. Number 10.
This is regarding the Sand and Stone property at 303 New Britain Road, or actually it's no longer the Connecticut Sand and Stone. The council authorized the sale of the tax liens on this property, I think in July it was, for the sale to the Rotha Contracting. And this is also now looking to do some brownfields and some environmental assessments through a grant from the state of Connecticut in the amount of $100,000, so that the people will know exactly what's on the property and what can be done with the property. After receiving notice of the grant award, staff initiated a consultant selection process. They narrowed it down from 16 proposals and interviewed 4 firms that were interviewed. The committee recommended the selection of Beta Group, Inc. for a fee of $49,700, as they were the highest rated firm by all 3 committee members. The committee was made up of Chris Edge, our purchasing agent Adam Tulin, and Public Works Director Jack Healy. And they recommend Beta Group, and the actions with a 15% contingency for change orders to be made. The actions required are to appropriate the grant and authorize to enter into a contract for $49,700 plus change orders not to exceed $7,455 for an amount of $57,155.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we have a motion on this?
Okay, I move to appropriate the $100,000 State of Connecticut Brownfield Grant for the Connecticut Sand and Stone properties to the state and federal grants revenue account and to the Brownfield Assessment Connecticut Sand and Stone expenditure account, and also to move to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract with Beta Group, Inc. for the Connecticut Sand and Stone properties environmental site assessment for a fee of $49,700 plus change orders not to exceed $7,455 for a total contract amount not to exceed $57,155.
Okay, second on this?
Second.
Any discussion, questions?
Yeah, Mayor, I've got a question.
Yes.
What is the value that, I can see the ratings and so forth, but what's the value of the work that they're going to be consulting on, that's going to bring the strength of, spending another $7,000 here versus, Triton Environmentally Incorporated, that was at $42,000.
First, Triton Environmental, the gentleman, it kind of looked like he pulled his neighbor from the desk next to him and said, "Would you like to come to an interview?" Literally, they talked about themselves, knew nothing about the project. Looking at the other ones, we felt that they were the most prepared from the standpoint that they came in with suggestions, solutions, and a path to do it. Some of the other firms that were lower cost, essentially their proposals looked good, but when they came in and talked to us, there seemed to be a disconnect between what their proposal said and what they came to the interview with. And in our minds, that's an important thing because we also want to make sure we're working with someone and trusting them at the same time.
So I can appreciate that. I've been through a number of interviews where I've been interviewing those and bidders and whatever they might be. But I guess my question is then, what is the value of this consulting going to give us? Is this going to be for cleanup work that we're going to have to pay X, or is this just advisement at this point?
No, what we are doing is we're working with Rotha Contracting. This is going to tell us exactly what is there, and then we're going to be working with Rotha. They're going to come to us with a plan. The cleanup and anything thereabouts is going to be on them. They currently are a contractor through DOT. They've dealt with environmental, they've dealt with various things, and we're hoping with them we can create some opportunities here, most likely in, if I was to guess, heavy construction, landscaping, other type of folks. Because it's behind New Britain Road, there's very minimal visibility, and as it's heavy industrial land, but a lot of it is going to be put onto them at this point. Because we are not in the chain of title, it's not something we're going to be taking on. As we said, it's currently owned by someone who has a large tax bill. We're looking to go through tax lien so Rotha can take it and make it productive again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Number 11, please.
Yeah, most of these and all of the economic development, the recurring theme I think that is important is that most of these are either state grants or something that's not town funds. So this is also the same situation with agenda item number 11. This is the 73 Woodlawn where Tasca Ford is currently looking to expand. We had received a Brownfields assessment grant to conduct the assessment of both that property and 586 Deming Road. The consultant for 73 Woodlawn Road, HRP Associates, recommended additional testing to better determine the extent of contamination. And with the approval of Town Council, we applied for the State of Connecticut for the supplemental Brownfields assessment grant of $35,600 to do the additional investigation. There's also monies that are also due from the matching funds, but the matching funds are coming from the property owner, which is 73 Woodlawn LLC, which is related to Tasca Automotive, in the amount of $8,900. So there's no town money, it's state and the owner's funds that are being used. Since the town has received the supplemental grant, the next step would be to facilitate and select a consultant to do the additional investigation. Staff is requesting that Town Council waive the bidding process in the best interest of the town to continue to use HRP Associates to do the additional investigation for a fee of $44,500. $500. While that's large, it's none of our money. This is something that TASCA has also expressed a desire to continue working with because they're familiar with these people. This is their property after all, and this is what they are looking to have us. So the action required is waive the bidding procedure, authorize me to enter into an agreement with HRP Associates to conduct the additional environmental investigation for a fee not to exceed $44,500.
Okay, thank you. Motion on this?
Move to appropriate the $8,900 local property owner match for the State of Connecticut Brownfields Assessment Grant to revenue account, other receipts, and to expenditure account, Brownfields Assessment Grant, Woodlawn and Deming Roads. And also to move to appropriate $35,600 State of Connecticut Brownfield Assessment Grant for Woodlawn and Deming Roads, to revenue account, state and federal grants and expenditure account, environmental assessment, Woodlawn and Deming Roads. Also to move to waive the bidding procedures in the best interest of the town and to authorize the town manager to enter into an agreement with HRP Associates to conduct additional environmental investigations at 73 Woodlawn Road for the attached scope of work for a fee not to exceed $44,500.
Okay, thank you. Second on that?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mayor, just a question on, it does indicate the waiving of the bid and that they have some familiarity with it. Besides that, has there been any comparison on their costs versus utilizing someone else and then the incremental cost that would be to shift to someone else?
We have not put that together at this point. It is something we can definitely take a look at. This was more the request of TASCA because they've been working with them for at least the last 2.5 years. It is something we definitely could take a look at. I mean, I would ask if you could put the monies in and then we could basically take it and talk to HRP and talk to a couple other folks and see if the number is more, if the number can be better from someone else.
Well, I would think in its selection and use of them, the business is probably looking at some value in that and the costs. So I appreciate that added insight. Mr. Mahoney, you seem to have some comments coming.
Just one, and just you know, it may be obvious, but obviously we went through the initial RFP process and got bids from multiple firms and prices from HRP and other firms, and then went through the process, came to you and selected HRP. So this is, you know, we're just talking about for the incremental work, and no, we didn't, as Chris said, didn't get additional proposals for the additional work, but they feel again to have that continuity as the property owners to get to the other side and hopefully get to the point where they're going to feel comfortable in investing in development of the property. They want to get to the point where they have a remedial approach for the property and they're confident in HRP.
I appreciate that added insight, and I think I recall that was really what I was looking for. At what point was that competitive comparison rather than, hey, they look good, they've done work, and that's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Mahoney.
Okay, motion on the floor. If no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Denise, number.
Yes, now that the
12,
police station project has been defeated or not forwarded through the council, there has been some questions raised by the EDC and others about what's going to happen to the property on Farmington Avenue. Staff has talked at great length, and I have also spoken with both the chief and the police commission chair as far as their thoughts on what we should do, whether we should just hold on to this piece of property for them in the future or whether they would deem it okay to look at what could perhaps be done with that property. Staff felt that if we did a similar process like we have done for the Depot Crossing, as well as what we did for 889 Farmington Avenue, and looked at getting a developer on board that might be able to present us with a project that would now increase in scope. CIL was the chosen developer for the 889 parcel. We've been working with them and the state of Connecticut and Amtrak and everybody else on the train station / police station project, but they have sent a letter, as indicated in here, that they feel that they have no problem in stepping aside, so to speak, and terminating the arrangement that we had with them, informal as it may have been, but they would look to expanding the scope, and perhaps they may even bid on the project as well, but it would be the 889, 903, and 913 Farmington Avenue rather than just the 889, which would be a bigger parcel, perhaps to attract different sized developers from all over. So what staff is proposing is to put together a committee to look at the requests for proposals that come in and authorize the issuance of an RFQ and appoint a committee for the 903, 913, and a portion, I guess, of 889. And the committee would consist of the chair and vice chair of economic development, myself, director of development services, and the economic development director.
Okay.
See what happens.
All right, I just have just a question before we go to the motion. I know, remember, didn't we, at one of the last meetings, I know we did a lot of studying of the transit-oriented developments and planning and zoning, but didn't we just authorize another study of this area? But does not include this, or, right, remember
Yes,
council meetings
yeah,
ago?
we're working with Civic Moxie right now. Actually, Jim and I are going to have a conference call with them tomorrow. We're going to be taking essentially next steps, including engagement of some of the property owners as well as residents in the area to kind of see what the best mix is. And that includes the entire area.
Yeah, so that's not something, this is, I understand this is something different, but wouldn't some of that now incorporate, now, I mean, this is just incorporating another piece of property. The other property was already available, but.
Right.
Yeah.
They know, Civic Moxie has already met with us at one point, and they know that there was a potential for there to be additional properties added if the police station were not to proceed, so that they're aware and that this is all part of what they would actually like a bigger parcel perhaps to look at and to give us some guidance on. But you're right. It would be all part of it.
So, they'll know, yes.
Yeah.
How will this affect the boulevard?
That's a good question.
I mean, that's the linchpin for that development at the train station, is the access. And the accompanying businesses, I mean, it's been long ago when I was on economic development.
Right now, the idea is that's why we said a portion of 889, because we're still reserving, you know, the 889 is 1.65 acres. We were reserving like 0.45 acres for the boulevard under the old design. So we had 1.2 acres of 889. I think we'd go out with the same plan. However, you know, the design of the boulevard and the exact boundaries of it, we would work with the selected developer on. We were already starting to work with the boulevard design with CIL, and CIL actually recommended a narrower boulevard and things like that. But you know, we would work with the selected developer on the, you know, how all these things should tie in together.
Thanks, Jim. You mentioned you spoke with the police department, the chief, and what was their
What was
their
He
comment?
was here.
He's probably around.
The chief has nothing to really, he doesn't really know what direction things are going in, and the chair of the police commission said if somebody would offer the town more money for that parcel to go for it.
Because this precludes us ever building a police station there.
Possibly, that is true.
So,
But there's
we're selling our future.
the choice would be, we have a parcel of land there that we are paying money on because we borrowed it with bonded funds, and it sits for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm not sure how many years before a council decides to build a police station, or we see what may potentially be able to be developed there. We will do whatever council directs us to do. This is an option. And you're absolutely right. This may preclude ever building a police station there if something else comes along.
And this is just, the way I would understand it, unless I'm wrong, would be this is just exploratory. We're just trying to see what may be out there, what if there's another option. It doesn't necessarily preclude a future police station, you know, but I mean, it's worth, I think it's always worth looking at different options instead of just sitting and hoping or wondering if something will happen down the road or what we have funds to do, especially I guess if we're paying money on this parcel. And I know several developers in different discussions, not necessarily regarding this, had said that, you know, obviously the more parcels available there, the better. But so I think this is just, right, if I understand, just kind of to see what may be out there if there's other options.
Yes, we have the ability to either choose someone or decide not to choose someone to work with. I mean, we will likely do what we did with CIL, which is a memo of understanding, which is basically saying we're going to work with you and only you for a period of time. If they come back to us, it's something we don't like or something that is completely outside the bounds of zoning, we can just say no. To take a step back to Civic Moxie, I think Civic Moxie will be helpful in this in two ways. One, they can help us put the best scope together possible so we find the right candidates. And on the other end, they can help us, again, look at the different candidates, and they also might know who are real players and who are folks that are going to waste our time.
Okay. Yes?
So I wasn't on the council when we first started talking about the police station. I get the feeling that this has been a very lengthy discussion at this point. Were there other sites ever identified for that, and are any of those available still? No. Okay. All right.
Yes.
I stand corrected. That I'm trying to think if there were vacant land, but none that are owned by the town.
Right. Okay. So this would be the last possible place we could put it right now.
That are owned by the town.
Right. So we would have to look at acquiring. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Thank
Yes, Councilman Payanes.
Do we know how much the property's worth? Has there been a commercial appraisal of this?
I don't know.
Recently,
No,
no,
I
not
don't
in
believe
a
an
long
appraisal's been
time.
done with, at least we've not done one.
So we're gonna have a search committee form for a project that we don't know what we want because the consultants that we funded haven't told us yet. And we don't know what the property's worth. I think that's a little premature.
What do we pay?
And we get involved with developers like this, for some reason, we always wind up with developers that depend on public subsidy. And as the gentleman with this wonderful new factory comes to Berlin proves, the taxpayers don't have to fund these developments. Depot Crossing looks beautiful, but there's empty stores. And we have a lot of tax dollars in that building. You know, the same thing with the mill up the street where the 85 condos aren't being built. It's beautiful, but now we're being asked to subsidize tonight a piece of blighted property. I would prefer to find out what the thing is worth and perhaps look for someone who might purchase it for commercial development instead of tax-funded growth.
I would agree with you. I think it does make sense to look at a longer view. I know that one of the reasons why we believe this makes better sense than what we did previously is POCO, P-O-K-O. They're doing the project in the former location of the New Britain Police Station. They had looked at our site as well. When they looked at our, I think it was 1.2 acre site, they really liked the community, loved the train station, but it was too small to be financially viable. That was the same message we got from CIL. The numbers, again, as you said, Councilor Payanessa, they would need a tremendous amount of funding from somewhere to fill the gap. I think the method you're talking about would be very good because we would know where we're coming from and would hopefully be able to then connect with someone with more understanding and more of development potential, even more financial ability.
What do we, and having not been on the council, what do we pay for that site, the Kensington Furniture site?
1,787,000. Million?
Yeah.
About $1 million. I thought the guy wanted $2 million at one point.
Well, we
right?
borrowed $2 million.
Yeah, we
But
borrowed
we
$2
did.
million, but I think we ended up
1.2 or something less
we
than
paid
that.
less than $1 million, I think,
Yeah.
because we negotiated down with environmental issues and
yeah.
stuff like that, and then we paid. We spent the rest. We bonded $2 million, spent the rest of the money demoing the buildings, and then doing all the the plans for the police station, et cetera.
Just out of curiosity, because I asked this question once at Planning and Zoning, I never really got an answer, but, we had approved, I remember the initial plans for the police station. Chief, we're back to the police station, but remember we were gonna, the warehouse next to Kensington Furniture was going to be kind of stripped down to its, bare bones, and we were going to, I think, add on to that. That was the plan that I originally remember approving, and then one day, as we drove by, the whole thing was demolished.
No,
That was the original plan, I believe. I could be wrong. but
We
that's what I
looked at
remember.
alternatives
Yeah.
to begin with, and we
Yeah.
actually, we hired when we went through the alternatives analysis to see if we could use the existing building, the warehouse building.
Right.
And we determined that it wasn't feasible. We had a structural engineer. The building was built, I'm going to say, in the 40s.
Yeah, probably.
And that was before there were any seismic requirements. And under the state building code, police station is the highest classification in terms of structural requirements for the building, et cetera. So they just advised us that with all the retrofit we'd have to do, you'd be better off knocking it down and starting over. So that's where we went with it.
No, thank you for the answer. That's good. Okay, so where do we stand on this? I mean, so we have these other consultants doing some work. Do we have a timeline on them, at least telling us now that we've potentially maybe have another piece of property, even though we don't really know yet, before we go forward with trying to find a developer?
Yeah, they're already working for us, so
Yeah.
they can just again, we're not going to issue this tomorrow. We're going to work with them and put together the documents when they're ready. And again, as far as the value of the property or appraising the value of the property before, we could do that, but I think that I think we're looking at, seeing what proposals we get in terms of dollar amounts, but more when you look at this type of a development project, that, the scale that we're envisioning, the tax dollars that we're going to receive from the development in the long run are going to outweigh what we get for purchase price. So that's a very important thing. In addition to the spin-off benefits of the project, et cetera. It may be I think more. It's the issue is probably just as much timing in terms of the train station being or the commuter rail service starting in 2018. Is it too soon? Are people are building that into their projections at this point? And we really won't know that until we go out. And as Chris said, we had interest last time, but maybe it was a little early. And we think it's a better time now. But if we don't get a proposal that you're satisfied with, we'll turn them all down.
Again, we're just requesting stuff. We don't.
Authorization
Yeah.
to-
No.
right.
To request some things, see what comes out of the woodwork, I guess, right? Basically.
Right, and obviously, not this again. We could wait also, but just to say that, obviously, the state has invested a lot of money with us in this area, and with many grants, and they're doing a lot with the train station, et cetera. And I think they're encouraging us to try to move this forward as other towns are moving some of their projects forward, like Meriden, et cetera, rather than waiting, or at least explore. So that's kind of part of the reason that we're kind of trying to advance this.
Okay, thank you, Jim. All right, so I think this was still yes.
So the police chief is back, and
Yes.
Denise had indicated that there was a conversation between him and the police commission
Yes.
regarding this property, and I just wanted to
Sure.
touch base first before we
Welcome, Chief.
went ahead. Hi, Chief. How are you?
Good evening. Chief Fitzgerald, the question is?
So, this was supposed to be the site for the police station that you guys had put plans forward a couple times, and one didn't succeed at referendum and one didn't make it past the council. So, I know there was some discussion about wanting to do a police station in 2 years. Could you walk me through the process that you guys had taken to get to this point with that property?
It was a long process. I worked with Jim Mahoney. I bet you we considered 20 different locations in town. And it's funny you're talking about where the Knights of Columbus, that was one of the sites we considered. I'm so glad we didn't, now hearing their problems.
Yeah.
So it is difficult to find the proper location. And then as the mayor, you don't know the history of it. We haven't had the time to express the history to you because it was didn't get that far. But The building was looked at. Not only was it not structurally sound, there were there was contaminations within the seams of the building. So there was more than just the seismic issues that caused that building not to be accepted. But the town did buy it, and we remediated the site to the best of our ability, and then we went under the design and bid and the referendum, and then at the council's direction, we reduced the price and came back again, and then it was stopped here at the council level.
So that was what, like, at least 2 years, maybe
Oh,
3?
more than 2 years, yeah.
Just with that piece of property?
Yeah, with that piece of property, I would say 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years,
Yep.
okay. So if we were to, and I know we're not at that point yet selling this piece of property, but if we were to do that, it would, your estimate be another maybe 4 or 5 years before we?
Yes, you'd have to find another site. We'd probably look at another vacant building. We'd probably have engineers look at that building. The engineers would probably say it's not suitable. We'd have to knock it down. We'd be doing a lot of what we've already done.
Okay. And when you say we, the town of Berlin?
Yes,
Paid to
yes.
have all this remediated?
Sure.
I wanted to make sure it
Economic
wasn't,
development is
you
our
know,
tool.
your budget.
Economic
Okay.
development is our tool for vacant properties or suitable properties in town.
Okay.
You know, and recently someone even mentioned, oh, well, the Acura dealership's going to be vacant. Sure, it's a building that's going to be vacant, but will it meet the requirements that you want for a police station? A lot of glass, a lot of garage doors, but other than that, I don't know what else it provides for a police station.
True. All right. Thank you. I appreciate
Mhm.
that.
Okay. Thanks, Chief.
Mayor, before the chief goes
Yes.
too far.
Yes,
just,
yes. Don't
another
go, Chief.
follow-up question. What was the discussion on the delaying 1 year, 2 years, which I presented some numbers around with the police commissioner? Was there any discussion?
There was no indication that it was delaying 1 year, 2 year. It was our understanding that it was just voted down.
I understand that, but there was some rationale given around what economically could be affordable at a particular time. So all I'm asking is if there was any discussion around that, whether that was any intent or any direction. Sometimes there's discussion around the discussion we have, so that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't recall this dialogue or the delay of 2 years or that. I don't recall that at all being discussed.
So when we talked about the particular moving forward with it or not, we talked about the impact on our principal and interest payments of the town. And if where it is right now, combined with all the principal and interest expenses associated with the new school, and then what it looks like a year from now, 2 years from now. And so there was some discussion around that. And I just apparently...
Right, during the night that we discussed this item, that did come up. But when the vote was taken, the mayor gave direction of looking at the $2 million that has not been appropriated yet or set aside yet for upgrades to the current building to get us for a period of time. It wasn't really directed at that 2-year time period for financing, at least not to my knowledge.
Okay. I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
I just have a question. If we do, so and I don't know if this is more for the chief or for Dave or both of you guys, I guess. But if we, so we're commissioning this study, we're going to see what these people say about, you know, what can we do with this, and okay, that's great. Then once we have that information, what are we going to do with it, right? We're going to obviously have to vote to either sell the property, to develop the property, to keep it for a police station. These are all choices that we're going to have. So having information is a good thing, but once we get to that point, are we going to say, okay, we're going to sell it, and then when we sell it, that kicks our police station down more than 2 years, because we're not now just waiting 2 years to build a new building. We're out 4 or 5 years to find a place to put it and things like that. So we need to be thinking about that now before we get to that point.
Sure, and that's part of our... I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I thought it was a question to me or the chief, so
Yeah,
that's
so
why I'm interjecting. But Yeah, so
Are we thinking about that, or are we considering this? I guess that's
if
the
you
question.
get this, feedback that this has some commercial value and this is what we sell, I don't think we want to divorce ourselves from the idea that if depending on where we're at with respect to renovating for the police station, we want to kind of understand and keep that in balance. There's a cost either way, and as well as revenue. So we'll get feedback from the RFP that will talk about what's the potential revenue. We'll see there's a cost finding a new parcel with the police station. You can't separate everything out. It'd be nice just to say, okay, let's make a decision on just this. But we have to balance all the different competing needs that we have for a town.
And those are the same decisions that we have to make with deciding on renovating the police department. Do you put in all new windows? That's a big expense. Are all those new windows a wise investment for 2 years? Well, I don't know if we're talking 2 years, 5 years, 7 years,
Right.
or whatever.
That's what I
So,
was getting
so
at.
how do you make those decisions without having some guidance or direction? And I don't think we have that guidance or direction at this point.
I agree. That's sort of what I was getting at. Everything's moving. We need
And
to-
so the $2 million that we spoke of, I could spend it, but is that a wise decision?
Yeah, I think, Paul, what we need to do is, and the summer came and went, but we need to, we need to have some discussions, and I think quickly about what to do for you guys. Like I mentioned, we got to get on it and see what, where we're at. This is all, I think, just part of the discussion, but I don't think anything's off the table or on the table. It's off temporarily, and I kind of always had that in my mind too, that I think in my mind, why I voted the way I did was looking at the debt on the high school, and I think we did have this discussion during our budget talks that the entire council that, in a couple of years when that debt load goes down in town because of the high school, it may change the financial picture a little bit, but we also need to plan for that, or before that, obviously occurs, what we're going to do for the police station, what we're going to do with this parcel, what we're going to do with a lot of things. But we got to, I want to talk in the next month. We do definitely with you and the police commission, and in fact, whatever the best way is, we'll get together, and then, the entire council, obviously, the town, everybody, and just figure this out for whatever the short term is. So we'll get there.
Okay.
Yes.
Charlie.
Oh, yeah,
Sounds
Charlie.
like the
Yes.
decision to look for a developer is premature. I would prefer to wait on this whole thing until some decisions are made about
We could do that.
the future of the police station and
We
the
could do that.
study this study, these experts that we've commissioned may say that's a terrible place for the police station, or they may say that's the perfect place. I'd like to hear what they have to say.
That
Try to
was.
get some handle on what the property might be worth.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I was getting at with our consultants. Like, how quick will that? What's the name of? I forget the name of the company.
Civic Moxie.
Civic Moxie. When is that going to be somewhat completed, or when are we going to get some direction from them? Because I know we just commissioned them, but that would be that. I agree, Charlie. That would be helpful because that's what they're supposed to be doing. Kind of what we're looking at here, right? Or just giving us some type of direction for the whole piece.
Yeah, I would say that'll be about 6 months, because they're doing public participation process and all that
Okay.
stuff. So,
Okay.
but I think we've already heard from them, and really from all of everybody we interviewed for that assignment said, if you really need to have a property of greater scale to attract the kind of development that I think we're looking for. So they were all kind of pointing us in that direction, but again, we can certainly hold off to. I don't think it, but I think we're gonna. I expect them. Obviously, the reason we're saying this is because we kind of know
What they're going to
what
say.
they're going to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the big picture.
Yes.
I'd like to wait. I'm with Charlie on this one. I'd like to wait and hear what they say. I don't see any immediacy to this.
Yeah.
No,
agree.
I think I think I agree with that. So okay, so where are we at? What do we do here? Do we ever? No, we didn't do a motion, right? So what Mr. Roberts
action,
rules?
right?
huh?
Yeah,
Just
no action.
no
No
action.
action, okay, great. I just want to make sure you're still paying attention to it.
I'm
All
awake.
right, yeah. You and me both. Okay, so no action on this one. Okay, thank you. Good discussion. All right. Oh, okay, so where are we at now? 13.
Alta.
In the interest of time, I'm going to defer to Jim Mahoney. He can, this is
Great.
one that he is intimately familiar with.
Great.
So the recommendation is to waive bidding procedures and to authorize a contract with Alta for continued environmental assessment of 1567 Berlin Turnpike. We've been working with them since, 2008. Bought the property, I believe, in 2006, if my memory serves. And they've taken us a long way. And obviously, we've done the remediation, so we're kind of everything that they basically until last June, if you remember the meeting, the June meeting, we had all of our expenses were reimbursed by our insurance company plus the deductible on the deal to begin with, and now we get into the kind of post-remediation monitoring, which is not covered by the insurance policy. We've done a little bit of that. I think we authorized $5,800. I think we spent $4,800 or something like that with them on the first round of monitoring. But they have to do additional monitoring this year. Also, when they were doing the replacement wells, which was part of your authorization in June, but paid for by the insurance company, they found they had to spend extra time, had issues with the wells. The wells cost more, another $2,800. AIG, the insurance company, has authorized that $2,800, but now we've got to, increase their contract to cover that. So we're recommending, again, the $15,000, of which $12,200 would be from the town funds. Again, we've just moved into the post-remediation monitoring phase of this. We didn't anticipate we were going to get there when we were doing the budget last year, so we did not include it in the budget. It would be typically, as we have with the town, with the Veterans Park project, probably, again, put it in the Public Works budget in the future. We didn't do it this year, so we're recommending $12,200 from contingency to fund this.
Okay, thanks. What is this? I'm sorry. What
This
is
is 1567 Berlin Turnpike,
What-
which is the parcel next to Sage Park on the
Oh,
turnpike.
yeah, there. Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So we have a motion on this.
Move to waive the bidding procedures in the best interest of the town and to authorize the town manager to enter into an amendment to the town's agreement with Alta Environmental Consulting to provide additional services related to the remediation and compliance project for 1567 Berlin Turnpike for a fee not to exceed $15,000, with $2,800 of the cost of the project to be funded from the insurance claims account and expected to be reimbursed to the town under its insurance policy for the property. Also to approve a transfer of $12,200 from the contingency account to the Public Works Department contractual services account to fund the remainder of the cost of the project.
Okay. Thanks. Second on that.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in
Mayor,
favor?
a question
Oh, yes.
from Mr. McMahon.
Yes.
How long are we going to continue this path? How many more years are ahead of us with this, or can we predict that right now?
Can't predict it exactly, but what happens is, we start the post remediation monitoring. If we get clean results for a couple of years, then we'd go to the state and request discontinuance of monitoring. Most of the costs are in terms, the biggest cost is this first year, but there will be future costs for post remediation monitoring.
Has anyone in the staff looked at aggregating our testing across the town, other testing that we have to do? It seems we're hearing more and more of this.
Yeah, I think we can, next year, I think that makes sense to try to, we can look at, we've been using a different firm for the Veterans Park, but once we, I think we wanted to get through this. Alta is kind of already under contract to us to do the ultimate compliance reports for the property, and that's it's going to be paid for by the insurance company. But if we can make this, in the future, I think we can segregate it out, the testing, we can look at that for next year. But I think our thought was they've already done the first quarter of monitoring for this year. Again, they've been on it for a long time. It's, you want to have continuity at the end of the day with a consultant when you go to DEP and try to get them to sign off that everything's fine with the site.
When could I see a coordinating RFP calendar that would tell us when it would make sense to be able to bid all our testing services out there and anything else in the town that we could aggregate?
Yeah, those two. I think we can look at it by the next meeting. We can tell you,
that would be
when
great.
we thought.
I'd appreciate it.
Coordinate those two, and that in Veterans Park, that we've been declining our testing there. It might have been, quarterly for 5 wells, 30 compounds, and now it's down to, semi-annually for 3 wells for 6 compounds. It's it's kind of narrowing down, but we still have testing, so we could look at both.
That'd be great. Just the population of that, and then
we'll look at the time, the
there's certainly other
sequencing
things
of
we
those
could
two
look at.
right now. I don't think we met. We'll have to see if we have anything for like the public works material storage area. I'm not sure. We may have maybe 3.
It's more than one.
Comes to mind.
Okay, good idea.
Okay. Motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 14.
The town has received notice it's going to receive an additional grant from the state of Connecticut to provide the facade and landscape improvements, matching grants to the property owners. We've gone through the first $500,000, and this is an additional $500,000 from the state of Connecticut Transit-Oriented Development Grant for facade improvements. So this needs to be allocated.
Okay, we have a motion on this?
Move to appropriate the $500,000 State of Connecticut Transit-Oriented Development Grant for facade improvements to the revenue account, state and federal grants, and expenditure account, Transit-Oriented Development Facade Program.
Okay, second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Okay, so
Right.
so we're gonna go down all these appointments now? Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. If you'd like that.
I put them on only so that you.
To torture us some more,
Yeah.
to know that there's some more stuff to do.
If you're in the room, you get picked.
Yeah, I think
If
that's
you're
it.
not in the room.
Yeah, I think
Throw darts.
maybe we should revisit our not having August meetings. I don't know. This meetings is getting to be a bit long. I apologize to the people who are left here and what we have to do, but I know it was great having August off, but it's not so great tonight.
We almost
because
get normal
yeah,
again.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Seriously.
Then we're back here, though, right? for tonight. But okay, so we're at the town manager's report.
I'll just be very brief. A couple of things we're looking, obviously, at year-end, and year-end last year looks very good because of several factors, milder winter, expense control, wage negotiations. There still has a substantial balance in it. It looks like we won't be needing any of the $1.8 million that we used to budget last year and we may even be able to return an additional few $1,000,000, but those are all unaudited because the new auditors are not coming in until November, which is actually very good because we don't have a finance director full-time yet. Second thing, though, is that we are having the second round of interviews for 2 candidates on Friday, so hopefully we'll be able to fill that position sooner than later as the CIP starts this month, September already. Tomorrow is our band sale in the morning, so we're going forward with the borrowing, so noon tomorrow.
Yeah. There was not a number in that email. You gotta just
Okay, I'll
text
get
me-
you an
text
email.
me the number.
And that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Denise. Okay. Special committee reports. Hearing none. Counselor Communications is next.
Just briefly.
Yes.
Lenny, while you're here, I'm sorry to yell this out in public, but I had the opportunity to be at Zippadelli Field Saturday for a doubleheader, and it was so dry there that the coach come out and put his hand over a hose and try to water it down. Is there anything we can do up there with irrigation?
Is it the infield that was dry or the outfield?
Infield.
The only, on the infield, in the clay, or the dirt, or the grass?
Dirt.
Dirt. The only thing I know you put down is calcium chloride to try to pull water in and moisten it up.
All right,
And
rather than take...
And I don't know if that's a hazard, or if you then can't play on it for a certain amount of time.
All right, why don't we check it out with your committee and see... Thank you.
Okay? Yeah, yes. Okay.
Mayor, just a few moments, bear with me, please. Council members, as well as several other folks in town, town manager, have been given an invite to tour a regional Hartford, Connecticut temple of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, located in Farmington. And we've been invited, and I'm just trying to coordinate for the council the first tours and any others that would like to join us. The temple prior to the tours for the general public. As a member of the church offering the tours, I suggest it's a rare opportunity to tour the temple before it's dedicated for only member use. Unlike other meeting houses of my church, this building serves a large region that encompasses Connecticut, Rhode Island, and portions of New York and Massachusetts. Two closest temples I had gone to prior to this one being built was Boston and New York, and before that one in Washington, D.C. This temple will be used Monday through Saturday and not on Sundays like the regular meeting houses. It's comparable to biblical times. Moses had a portable tabernacle. Solomon built a temple. Christ was in a temple, helping, healing, and teaching. Inside the different rooms, people make promises to God, promises to keep His commandments, to be good husband, good wife, share what we have, and take care of each other, I think as we try to do on council. Marriage is also performed there to last forever, so families, including our ancestors, can always be together. As I said, it's a rare opportunity to tour the inside of the temple, because after it's dedicated in November, and only be open to the members of the church on the inside. Always welcome to come on the outside. Those that have, those to go inside are those that have prepared and made particular promises. When you see the temple, it may look nice to you from the outside and the inside, but I hope it's what happens inside the hearts of the people in our communities that will make this tour worthwhile now and in the future. I've suggested to council members Thursday, September 29th at 6 p.m. I've heard other times that may be more amenable, and if there would be a different time that would work for us, that would be great. I'm not suggesting a formal meeting of council, and wonder if we should even consider not going all at the same time if folks have a concern about that and folks meeting. But I'd offer that up, and I could certainly communicate, but I also have a handful of paper invites for those for general tours. It will be September 30th to October 22nd, if anyone would like one, or it's also available on templeopenhouse.lds.org. But I throw out there that time, Mayor suggested maybe a little later. There is some congestion on Route 4 going out that way, 6 o'clock maybe. 7 o'clock was maybe suggested. But I'll leave it up to council, and I believe the invitations certainly went out to others, but this is folks I guess they think are important to the community. I think some fire chiefs, some pastors, and I think even in the Board of Education side, I think there were some invitations there, and we can certainly bring a guest apparently from what the invitation says. Mayor?
Okay, great, thank you. So that date, keep that date in mind. I might suggest a little bit later, because knowing that, getting to that section of Route 4, it's past Tunxus there somewhere, right? Is it right?
Yeah, just a little past Tunxus.
A little past Tunxus, yeah. So it's a fun area to get
15, 25 minutes from here, depending on the traffic and the route you take.
Right, that time of day, yeah. So maybe we can talk about the time if people can make that date. That would be great. Thank you. Any other council communications? We good? Okay. So just acceptance of minutes.
Okay.
The 11th, August 11th.
I'll make a motion to accept the special town council meeting minutes from Thursday, August 11th, 2016.
Second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, so moved. All right, now we'll have to move into our executive session. I apologize to the people that had to wait this long for that, but we're here too, I guess, right? So, we have two different ones tonight. Lucky us. So the first one, I lost the sheet. The first one has more people in it, so let's do the first, we'll do the first one, the collective bargaining on the, so we have a motion to, right?
Motion to move into executive session
Second on that?
for purposes of the collective bargaining. Can I get general state statutes, records, reports, and statement of strategy and negotiations for the police contract? And also personnel matters, Connecticut general state statute concerning appointment, employment, performance, evaluation of a
Yeah.
public employee.